Okay. From the looks of it, we should be live. I'm gonna check on a few things here. Alright, that feed looks good. Let me go ahead and mute that. I don't have desktop audio going, so that's good. Alright, just give me a few minutes to set everything up, folks. Alright. Reload the page. Live mute. Okay. Couple more. Refresh the page. Okay, good. That one's already muted. And then there's kick. Okay, that one looks good, and we're muted there. Okay. Fantastic so far. Let me minimize these. Okay. Almost done setting up here. Alright, now can YouTube pop out chat? Yes, it can, it looks like. Okay, awesome. Minimize that. Let me put that chat next to the other ones. Okay, and one more thing before I get started here. Let me go ahead and send out the notification that I am live. Okay, notification number 1 sent out. And notification number 2. Okay. Go back here. And I can probably go ahead and minimize that as well. I'll just minimize everything else. Just have these chat windows up here. Okay, so we've got the chats for all 4 places where I'm streaming. Looking, okay, it's good. Okay. The model is functioning, but I do need to reset it. Hold on. Okay, I think we are ready to go. All right, hello. 3-teen, come on now. Get that off the screen. Get that off the screen. There we go. I don't think it was showing up, but I couldn't really take the risk there. Ugh. And I have to reset it anyway. Oh my. 3-teen, come on. I know it's a different webcam, but cooperate. Okay, as I was saying, hello, Chatsu here, and welcome to the final day of Chilling with Chatsu. Happy Halloween, everyone. So let me just go over exactly what this stream is and why using a webcam. Basically, I'm going to be going through my personal collection of horror movies and just kind of showing them off, talking about them, just basic stuff like that. How difficult was it to set up this stream? Well, let me put it this way. This webcam is upside down. And it's the one that I normally use for the VTube model. I kind of had to improvise some stuff last minute, grab some little arms and stuff. I kind of wish I had a light coming from that direction, but that wasn't really something that was going to be easy to do last minute. So I'm like, you know what? It looks good enough at this point. I was also going to wear my usual hoodie, but this V2 model is wearing an orange hoodie, and having the gray hoodie here I'm like, okay, let's pretend that I've just got my sleeves rolled up, and we'll just roll with that, all right? Okay, so I'm just going to kind of wing this, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to start with. So you know what, let me just grab these. Okay, I'm typically going to start with like DVDs and stuff and just kind of go from there. I'm so sorry if you can hear my chair. And my model's broken. Oh my god. Hold on. It completely broke, didn't it? No, just the lip syncing. Okay. We good? We good? We good? Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. That's probably because my chair's squeaking. I really need to grab some WD-40 and take care of this damn thing. But anyway, so the first movie I'm going to be, I'm just going to show off on here. Ooh! Kind of bumped my microphone there. Sorry if you heard that. I got Jaws here. This is my DVD copy. And this is one where definitely one of my favorites here. I actually just recently got to see this in the theater. That was a great experience. But this is one, probably one of my dad's favorite movies. I actually just got him the like the Blu-ray 4K combo. I can't remember what was that for Christmas, or was that? I think it might have been Christmas. But anyway. Yeah, this is the anniversary collector's edition, it looks like. I don't know, I think this was, yeah, the 25th anniversary, according to this. A bunch of fun stuff here. Let me just open that up. Regular DVD copy. Now, this one is the only one that I have actually upgraded. So I've got the 4K right here, the Blu-ray in 4K. Let's look back of it there. I have yet to actually watch it off of this. Last time I watched it, like I said, was in the theater, and I'm not sure if it was this 4K transfer that they had in the theater, or if there was a new 4K transfer, because I know they did re-release it afterwards. But, yeah. So I also have, let's see. I'll set those right there. Okay. So yeah, I got the Jaws 2 DVD. The only other one that on DVD has any kind of bonus features whatsoever. Now, it's been a while since I've watched these. Something that's going to become very apparent as I'm going through is a lot of these I have not seen in years, some since I bought them. And I started realizing as I was going through the different horror movies that I have that I really need to go back and re-watch a lot of my collection. And then there's some that I wound up watching, especially when we get to like the Universal movies, where I kind of binged them all because I was doing this thing actually about a month or two ago where I was basically just binging through every movie that I own that I hadn't actually watched yet. So now officially, as of me ending that, I have seen at least once every single movie that is in my collection. Including this. I think I've seen Jaws 2 twice. The original, oof. I can't even count the number of times. But yeah, there's Jaws 2. Set that down over there. Set these over there as well. Then we got Jaws 3, regular, no 3D, even though the movie was supposedly in 3D. There's no bonus features on this one. It's just bare bones basic, just the disc itself. And I don't know if there's any special features on that new 4K that's out. I think that one might have had Blu-ray in it as well. But I heard that the transfer on that was just absolutely abysmal because of the overuse of like AI to upscale it, which I kind of figured with a movie like Jaws 3, you're probably not going to put a whole lot of money into it, to be absolutely fair. I mean, it's disappointing. You want every movie to get like a proper restoration, regardless of the quality of it is. At least this is my personal opinion on the matter. Just simply solely for the sake of film preservation. It's something that, I feel very strongly about. Just kind of one of those things. But yeah, that's Jaws 3. And actually, let me go through, quickly talk about my actual thoughts of the movies. I should probably do that. Sorry, this is kind of me winging it here, but the original Jaws, absolute classic. Probably the only legitimately good shark movie ever made. I mean, some people make a case for like Deep Blue Sea. I wouldn't necessarily call that a great movie, but it's the closest thing to a genuinely entertaining movie involving a shark probably since Jaws 2, which, speaking of Jaws 2, without question the best sequel of the entire franchise. I need to quit looking over at the camera over there. But yeah, probably the best sequel of the franchise by a mile, but it's still far, far away from being a good or a great movie. It's a decent movie. Like, it's okay. If you want another Jaws, you want dang it, what's his face? Like the main guy from the original. Like you want to see him back. It's an entertaining enough watch, put it that way. I think I've seen Jaws 3 twice, and even if I had just seen it yesterday, probably couldn't tell you a single thing. It is a very forgettable movie. It's not like aggressively bad unless we're talking about some of the 3D effects. But when the 3D effects aren't involved, like I said, not an aggressively bad movie, just a really boring movie. It's just kind of there, you know what I mean? Okay, and then we get to Jaws the Revenge. I'll give it this. It's more entertaining than Jaws 3. Not for the right reasons. This is not a boring bad like 3. This is highly entertainingly bad. This is, I mean, the plot of this involves, I'm trying to remember. It's been so long since I've seen it, but like it implies, like the shark is out for revenge because somehow the shark understands that. It's got Brody, the main character from the first one, like the wife, like the same actress from the first one. Oh, hello, Ellie. How you doing? Yeah, in case anyone's just now stopping in here, I'm basically just chatting about horror movies that I own. So yeah, Jaws the Revenge. So yeah, the shark is apparently like remembers the family and just wants revenge on them somehow, even though it's a different shark. It's like, I don't know if you've ever actually watched the first movie, but that shark doesn't exactly make it out of there. But yeah, and the way the shark is actually killed off in this one, there are two drastically different versions of that scene, and both of them are hilarious and make no sense. Though I do think in both versions you do get the shark growling, which makes absolutely no sense because sharks don't growl. It's a fun, goofy watch. Not remotely scary at all, so I wouldn't even consider this one a horror. Which I actually did take out a bunch of movies that I didn't consider a horror from what I was going to do today. But yeah, that's the Jaws series in terms of like actual quality. It kind of went downhill, but at least it ended on an entertainingly bad movie. Let's see, which one are we going to do next? Yes, let's just go in the order I got here. Hang on. Yeah, I'll just set them right here. So yeah, so now we got the Saw movies. And I think the first one that I actually saw, no pun intended, was Saw 2. And I actually saw that in the theater with my dad. And I mean, I was entertained enough by it to, eventually get the entire series, although I do kind of think it sort of peaked with 2. There's an argument to be made for 3, but yeah. Oh, The Meg? I actually have not seen The Meg. But yeah, so yeah, this right here is a little trilogy set. Actually, I think if I looked at the back here, yeah, so these are actually in full screen. But the reason I even got this is because, as I'm about to show off here, the main set that I actually have is the unrated versions, and this is supposedly the theatrical version, although from what I understand, my brother basically went and tried to rip all my DVDs, and yeah, these don't apparently read anymore. I haven't actually tested it out, and there might be ways to get around that, but cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm going to turn these over so that I can grab them in order. So then I have Saw. This is the, like I said, the unrated version. Got the special 2-disc edition here. I'm trying to remember when I first watched this one. It probably would have been when I got this DVD. And I don't think I've watched the first one a second time since. I've watched 2 twice. But yeah, it's a nice little 2-disc edition here. What to say about Saw? Probably one of, if the not the best of the entire series, especially for the mystery aspect. It didn't really have a lot of the the quote unquote torture porn stuff that the later ones had, or at least it was very minimal. Mostly because of how low budget it was. And yeah, just a nice little mystery and great movie. Okay, so then we move on to Saw 2, which I've got the 2-disc edition of this one as well. Once again, I believe this is an unrated cut. Yeah, newly remastered alternate cut, it says on the back. And let me just open this up here. And so yeah, this one I watched in theaters, and I absolutely loved the twist at the end. I know probably if you really think about it, I don't know how well it holds up to scrutiny, but for a first watch in the theater, just kind of blind, not even having watched the first one, it worked for me. That's the best you can say when it comes to something like that. It worked for me. Okay, now this one's a little interesting here. Because we got Saw 3, which had a slipcover when it was brand new, but I got a lot, especially of my DVDs used, and this one did not come with the slipcover. But as you can see on the back, it is Saw 3. Once again, uncut version, or director's cut it says on here. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen this, and I'll just show the back of it because it doesn't have the title. But another one that I've only watched once, and I'll just set that down because of the glare. I remember thinking it was a good movie. But I also remember parts of it being really disappointing. But once again, it's been so long since... Oh my goodness, these gloves. It's been so long since I've seen it that I can't really even get that detailed on it. You know what I mean? I hate it when that happens. And that's going to be a lot of these. I can basically just give I liked it or I didn't like it. It's just been so long that when it comes to details, I'm a little hazy. But yeah, Saw 3, I remember being fun, and it was kind of one of those things where I kind of wish it had ended right here. And I don't want to spoil it if you haven't actually watched the series or anything, but there's a pretty big event that happens in this that kind of shaped the direction that the rest of the franchise would go in. And, I thought that was really well handled. All right, moving on, we've got Saw 4, which actually does have its slipcover. I'll actually show off something a little bit interesting with the way they did this one. But yeah, I guess the cover is sort of a spoiler for what I was saying with 3. But yeah, so this was a concept that I think only really could have worked once, which is why it does work in the context of this film. And that's, it's spoiling it right there. So I'll just say, yeah, Jigsaw dies in the third one. And basically what this one is, if you don't know how Saw works, basically this killer Jigsaw, as seen here, usually communicating through a doll, and you already know the doll. I mean, one of those pop culture things where it's kind of hard not to know it. But basically, puts people in these traps, and they have to do horrifying things in order to try to get out of them. And the idea behind them is you're supposed to be able to get out of them, but you either have to go through an excruciating amount of pain or lose something in order to get out of them. And the whole thing is, he's supposed to basically be teaching you a lesson about the value of your life and, stuff like that. Although increasingly throughout the series, there have been traps where it's like there was no realistic way that someone could have gotten out of that, or the amount of pain probably would have made them pass out or kill them in general before they could. But basically, when it comes to this one, so it's like, oh, wait a minute, he's dead, so how do you continue the franchise? Well, you see, he set up traps ahead of time. And he pre-recorded a bunch of stuff, which is, one of the reasons why it can only realistically work one. Maybe you could stretch it and have it work twice. Is Saw more jump scares or terrifying? Saw, oh God, it's been a while since I've seen these, so I'm trying to remember. There are some jump scare. A lot of it is more body horror than anything. Like, you'll have people, cut off body parts and stuff like that. With the first one, it's very, they don't show a lot. A lot more is implied. But starting almost immediately with the second one and continuing on from there, it kind of got more and more graphic with the violence. And, so yeah, let me show off the back here. But yeah, I like it's kind of interesting what they did with this. Oh, no, it's not this one. Never mind. There's one where it basically has to, if I remember correctly, you kind of have to flip the thing upside down in order to see it. I think it might be, let's see. So anyway, yeah, with 5, this is where they started. It started to get really unbelievable, but you know what? I was kind of invested in where the story was going, so I just kind of rolled with it. Let's see. Take the slip cover off there. No, this one's kind of normal with the way that works. I could have swore I remember one of them where the disc had to be put backwards. Was it even a Saw movie? Yeah, Saw 6, and just more. Oh, I think this might be the one. Yeah, but yeah, Saw 6. I think by this point the idea had basically been stretched about as far as it could go with the pre-planned traps and everything. I mean, there's an additional helper who's doing things behind the scenes, and I'm trying to remember, because a lot of the Saw sequels after 3 just kind of blend together. But I know that there was at least one person who was helping out who basically was creating traps that you couldn't get out of. Basically going against what Jigsaw had been trying to do. There's the back there. Oh, that's the one with the little, what was that called? Carousel or whatever? A little spinny thing trap. Yeah. But yeah, this is the one where you have to put the you have to put the disc upside down. There's I think that's a theatrical version of the first one that's on there. But yeah, you got to put the disc upside down in order for it to show up like that. I knew one of them did something weird like that. It was Saw 6, it looks like. But yeah, I like how it came with a free copy of Saw 1 in that version. So yeah, then there's Saw the Final Chapter. Oh, how did he die? I'm trying to remember. I think someone shot him. It's been... Okay, let me put it this way. When did Saw 3 come out? Let me see. Let me see if it says it on the back here. Okay, 2006. I probably would have gotten this DVD either 2008 or 2009. And then I watched it as soon as I got it. I don't think I have watched it since then. So I'm not 100%... I don't really remember vividly how he died, but if I'm not wrong, I think he got shot. But anyway, yeah, Saw the Final Chapter. This was like beyond the point of it being stretched to absurdity. This was also released in theaters in 3D, and there are scenes where it's very painfully obvious. Things, it goes, woo, just sending things towards the camera. Yeah, this one did not have any special features. I think this was one of those... I think this came out at that time where if you wanted the bonus features, you had to get the Blu-ray, and then the DVDs would be just released bare bones. And I know there was a point where, like back when like the 3D craze was going on, which would have been around this time, unless you got like the 3D Blu-ray, you only got some of the special features. I know the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean was like that. Some bonus features were on the regular Blu-ray, and then others only came in the 3D Blu-ray. But in case, yeah, just regular boring disc there. Just Saw the Final Chapter. It doesn't even say Saw 7 on it. Yeah, this one, very goofy. They did bring back a character who was just kind of assumed to be dead, though, which I thought that was really interesting. I'm not going to give away who it is, in case you actually want to watch the series. And another thing I really remember about this one is that for whatever reason, I don't know if there was some kind of a censorship thing going on or what, but the blood in here is pink. It looks like people bleed Pepto-Bismol in this movie. Okay, he didn't kill him. They should have made it. The person who killed him. Well, he did have a person who was helping him, and I don't remember if they were the one that shot him or if the main character of that movie shot him. I know there was a sort of betrayal that happens, certainly afterwards, by another helper of Jigsaw. But a lot of the unrealistic stuff when it comes to it is not the fact that the traps could be set up because there were partners helping him. It was the amount of like they had a lot of recordings of Jigsaw. Like he'd recorded a bunch of this stuff and had planned the traps in order for them to be set up after his death. But it's just as the sequels went on, it's like he had done this so many times where it's like, where the hell did this dude find the time? Especially when it was like dying of cancer. And then there was something else I was going to say that I just kind of slipped my mind. Oh yeah. So yeah, as it goes on and they sort of do this whole flashback things, they had the actor that plays Jigsaw. I forget his. Did they have him in here? Let's see. Oh my goodness. Any other day, I probably. Let me grab one of the other ones. Hold on. Once again, just grabbing Saw 3 here. I'll know his name if I see it. Okay, these names are all squished, so it's hard to read. But anyway, once again, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so yeah, they had a bunch of like flashback scenes, especially in some of the later films, that basically showed him, planning this stuff and his backstory and all. And I guess even if they wanted to do like that digital thing where they like digital de-aging, I don't think a lot of, especially the sequels, would have had the budget for something like that. So how did they show that the guy was younger? Well, they had this. He had to have been in like his late 50s or his 60s or something like that, and they put a baseball cap on him and had him wear it backwards to signify that he's young now in this scene. And it looks as ridiculous as it sounds. But yeah, let me put these aside now. Those are the Saw movies that I owned. There were Saw movies after that. I don't own them, and I have not watched them. And I mean, I'm probably going to wind up watching them eventually. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. And oh my god, this chair just keeps squeaking. But yeah, the Saw franchise is one of those kind of things. Yeah, I know, right? But it's one of those kind of things where it just kind of, you can see the quality kind of lessen as it goes on, much like, like most franchises do. It's one of those things. But a lot of the times there are inspired moments all throughout. So yeah, moving on to the next franchise here. My goodness, how long has it been? Like 30 minutes? Oh my goodness, I gotta get this moving if I'm ever gonna finish this tonight. It's gonna be the Universal Horror, and I'm gonna start off with this, the Dracula collection that I got here. The main star Bela Lugosi, although I think he only ever played Dracula in 2 movies, and I think one of those might be on here. Obviously, he played him in the first one, but yeah, the first big franchise that Universal did. These are like the old, like black and white, like monster movies from back in the 30s, 40s, and then we got some that go a little bit into the 50s. And yeah, a lot of these are some of those are actually shockingly shorter than what you might think today. Some of these are like a little over an hour long, especially the earlier ones. And this is where a little ways into the series is where I like stopped at one point, and then I came back to it when I binged the rest of the movies that I own. So a lot of the later ones, as we're going to see, I've got like the box set over here I'm about to pull out, but a lot of the later ones, it was part of the binge, and they kind of blended together for me after a while. So I kind of need to go back and give some of those like a rewatch so that they don't blend together as much, and so they're a lot fresher in my mind. But this was a set that I actually got at Walmart, and I had planned on buying the like the entire collection, because they had one of these. They had a Frankenstein one, a Mummy one, and a Wolfman one, if I remember correctly. I think there's actually a little slip in here. I think inflation's scarier. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, there's Frankenstein and a Wolfman one at the very least. So this one comes with the original 1931 Dracula, is one with the it looks like almost all, for the most part, of the special features. And this does come with the Spanish version of Dracula, which this was an interesting one. And I'm going based off of memory here, so if I get some stuff wrong, don't blame me, blame my faulty memory. But the Spanish version of Dracula, it was one of those cases where I don't know if this was a universal, for lack of a better word, a universal thing or what. But when it comes to at least the Spanish version of this movie, they didn't do like a dub or anything like that when translating it to markets that speak Spanish. Instead, what they did was, when the main crew was done for the day getting their shots, usually during the day, during the night, the Spanish crew would come in. Just, completely different actors, different crew and everything. And they would film the exact same scenes in Spanish. And so there's two very distinct versions of the movie. Now, apparently a lot of productions did this back in the day. However, the interesting part about the Spanish version of Dracula is that the team decided to do something very interesting. They would look at the dailies of the initial version, and they would basically say, hey, you know what? We can top that. So they have camera setups, and they'd be like, you know what? Let's make something more dynamic than what they did. And the one that really sticks in my mind is the introduction of Dracula himself. You see them at the top of this staircase, and it's this like grand wide shot. In the original one, the Bela Lugosi one, it's a still shot. The camera is locked in place, and you just get this great, wide, grand reveal shot. In the Spanish version, they actually they start off with the big, grand, wide shot, and then they slowly, dynamically zoom in. Like, they do this, sweeping shot until they get this up-close shot of the Spanish Dracula actor. And I'm trying to remember, was it the Angry Video Game Nerd or whatever? I think it was him who said, the best version, essentially, would be the Spanish version, but replace the actor with Bela Lugosi. And then you'd have, the perfect version of Dracula. You get the cool, dynamic shots from the Spanish version, and then you get, Bela Lugosi. So then this has Dracula's Daughter, which that was part of my initial run that I actually watched all the way through. Well, I did actually watch all the way through the movies, but where I was kind of pacing myself. I remember that one being kind of boring. I don't remember much from the movie. It was just kind of, yeah, Dracula has a daughter, apparently. So, and I think the twist was she was trying to be, pretend to be good or something like that, but then she was really evil. My memory is kind of faulty on this one. So yeah, you got Dracula's Daughter on there, and then you got Son of Dracula, which that one, interestingly enough, has Lon Chaney Jr., aka the Wolfman, playing Dracula. He did not appear very comfortable in the role. It's kind of goofy, but he was trying his best. Give him some slack. Then you got Son of Dracula and House of Dracula. And I don't know which one of these is which. This is one of those where I was binging, so things kind of started to blend together. But these are basically crossover movies, so they'll have the Frankenstein monster, the Wolfman, and they were a lot more fast-paced, action-y, kind of pulpy. Well, a lot more so than the originals. But yeah, just some good old-fashioned, black and white 1930s fun horror. Let me see if I can get this back in here. But, oh, yeah. Kind of got a clamshell thing where it opens up like that. But yeah, those are the Dracula movies. Now, we move on to the box set. 30 movies, the classic Universal monster movies. So the first one we have in here, you can actually see all the movies here. So I think about up to, I got a little ways through The Invisible Agent the first time I tried to binge all this. So I rewatched The Invisible Agent when I went on that binge, and all the other movies after that was just part of that binge. So here we got the Dracula collection, which has all the same movies that I had in that one, but it has a lot more bonus features from the looks of it. See more, yeah, because there's 3 commentaries, and I think only the first movie had commentary in that other box set. And then you got more discs. And I think... Does this have more? Yeah, this actually has more movies. This has... what did the other one have? Let me see. Yeah, I don't think this had... Oh, no, it has one more movie. Just Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which the other one didn't have. I think all the others are the same. Yeah, so Dracula. I love how each of these has their own separate... You could actually... when this came out, you could buy these individually, but I opted for the box set. I kind of wish I'd grabbed the Blu-ray set. I will eventually, but I just wish I had that at the time. But yeah, so you got the Frankenstein movies, and this is Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, Ghost of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula. Yeah, a lot of these discs were, basically the movies were carried over to these collections because, they were meant to be sold separately as well. So they opted to double up on some movies in these collections because, those characters continued on to those movies, and a lot of them, like I said, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and the Abbott and Costello movies. Is this the same one from this one? Yeah, Meets Frankenstein, so that one's carried over as well. But a lot of those were, essentially crossover films. It was like an expanded universe, a cinematic universe decades before Marvel did it. But yeah, the first three Frankenstein movies are definitely the best. You got the original, the classic, It's Alive, that comes from that. The Boris Karloff, who, actually, interestingly enough, I don't know how much of this is true, but apparently Bela Lugosi was originally offered the part of Frankenstein's monster. And he had turned it down, supposedly, because of, I think it was either a lack or no dialogue, and the fact that his face would be, covered in pounds of makeup. And he it did not like that idea, especially coming off of something like Dracula. And Bela Lugosi had actually played Dracula on stage before he'd played him in the Universal movies, and my understanding is actually that they almost did not want to cast him in the movie as a direct result of that. Once again, I got to go through a lot of these bonus features and stuff and really delve into that. Which, one of the great things about my memory not being so good on a lot of these is that I can go back, rewatch the movies, rewatch the bonus features, and it'll be like watching them again all over again. So, at least there's that. But yeah, Boris Karloff eventually became the Frankenstein's monster. Which, if you don't know and you're still confused about that, Frankenstein is the doctor who creates the monster. The monster isn't actually named Frankenstein, and that gets very confused at certain points. So yeah, this monster isn't Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's monster, who technically doesn't have a name, or you can just call him, like, the monster. But yeah, so Boris Karloff, interestingly enough, he wound up becoming a much bigger star and had a much larger career than Boris Karloff than Bela Lugosi, excuse me. Bela Lugosi sort of kind of fell out of the spotlight, and eventually started taking lesser and lesser roles, just because he needed the money. He also wound up being one of the early stars to actually have to go to a rehab for drug addiction and stuff. And eventually, his later films saw him starring in films by Ed Wood, who was... well, there's a Tim Burton movie about him, let me put it that way, and in that movie he's played by Johnny Depp. And basically he made some of the greatest terrible movies of all time. Some of the most infamous stinkers, but you kind of watch them going, oh my god. they're, entertainingly bad. But yeah, the first three Frankenstein movies are absolute bona fide classics, though I think a lot of people would consider Bride of Frankenstein to be the best of the bunch. Probably one of the best Universal monster movies, period. But Son of Frankenstein was really good too. Ghost of Frankenstein, I remember watching it. I'm trying to remember which one that was. I remember enjoying it for what it was. It wasn't as good as the first three, but still a fine movie. And then, of course, you have the crossovers, which got increasingly goofier, and the what's the word I'm looking for? Canonicity, I guess. Just, how canon each one is to the other ones is kind of questionable as the series goes on, because there will be certain things that are contradicted later on, and it makes the timeline seem like a confusing mess. And that's with a lot of... This is just the franchise as a whole. It's a very loose continuity, let me put it that way. Sometimes things will be just absolutely set in stone, and other times it's like, wait a minute, I don't remember it happening that way. And a lot of that has to... Okay, I gotta sit back here. I'm getting a little uncomfortable. Ugh. Sorry for all the loud noise. But basically, this was a era before home video. So a lot of the times when people would go to see these movies, they would just have their memories of seeing it in the theater, and they couldn't go back and rewatch to make sure that they're to refresh their memories. They would have like novelizations and stuff like that, but that might be the only way that they could really experience the movie again, unless the movie was re-released in the theater. It wasn't until later on that I think a lot of people even noticed some of the contradictions in the later movies. And for all I know, even the people who made the films probably wouldn't have even had a way of rewatching the movies. They were just kind of going based off of their memories or based off the novelizations or stuff like that. So, things like that just kind of happened. It wasn't until the invention of home video that we would get a lot more consistency between sequels. And then there would be things like The Evil Dead in the 80s, where I think they almost deliberately, as a send-up to a lot of the older films, I think they did it on purpose, where the continuity was kind of loose from film to film. Until you get to Army of Darkness, and that's literally owned by Universal, so that's a whole other mess, different companies owning them. But in this case, Universal owns all these movies, so... Let me move that to the side here. And then we get to The Mummy. And this is The Mummy, The Mummy's Hand, The Mummy's Tomb, The Mummy's Ghost, The Mummy's Curse, and Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. And the Abbott and Costello movies, I mean, they have a plot. You could kind of say that they're loosely canon in ways, but they're mostly just, comedic scenarios for Abbott and Costello to interact with. And those were a pair of comedians from back in the day. Probably the thing that they're most famous for nowadays is the Who's on First skit. If you're aware of that one, and you can look that up on YouTube, it's absolutely a banger to this day. Just them constantly going back and forth. But anyway, the Mummy series, this was interesting. So this picture is from the first movie, and that is Boris Karloff as the Mummy. And I'm trying to remember which... I think it was either Dracula or Frankenstein that the plot of this basically rehashes. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember the original Mummy movie being really good. But I think it's only one scene where Boris Karloff actually looks like that. That is like literally the first shot of him. And then throughout the rest of the first film, he's actually... they kind of have this effect over his skin where his skin kind of looks all wrinkly, but other than that, he just looks like a guy throughout the rest of the movie. trying to bring back his lost love and everything. And he was, killed by the what do they call the leader of the pharaoh? Basically he was murdered by them, then brought back as a mummy, and into the modern day of the film, which this would have been 1932, and. So the first movie kind of plays out like that. He's trying to do that, and people got hurt along the way, obviously, hurt and killed and all that fun stuff. And then we get to the sequels. Now the sequels are all connected to each other. Once again, some loose continuity going on with the sequels, but the sequels, starting with The Mummy's Hand, do not have any connection to the first movie. It's kind of like they rebooted it with a different mummy, but they also still sort of have the same backstory for the mummy, and I believe the mummy's name is Karis in the sequels. It was Imhotep in the original, but Karis is the mummy for the following films, and they kind of follow loose continuity where these Egyptian priests or whatever basically keep bringing him back. And are those like all the characters from Hotel Transylvania? Oh yeah, Hotel Transylvania, absolutely. There was a lot of influence from the Universal monsters. I mean, the Universal monsters, these guys have basically shaped our modern conception of a lot of these characters. Once again, we go back to Dracula. I mean, how the cliche version of Dracula looks and sounds. The Dracula who sounds like this. Whenever you picture, like the most stereotypical version of Dracula in your head, it's Bela Lugosi that you're seeing and hearing. Bela Lugosi is the prototype for almost the cartoonish version of how we think of Dracula today. And the voice, I think he was Hungarian, and his voice was basically, English was his second language. So he was still trying to learn, and he was just kind of slowly getting the words out, making sure that he was saying them correctly. So the way that he talks, it was that was how that kind of shaped it. And also, while I'm on the subject, I forget which film it is. It is one of the crossover films, but there is actually a Frankenstein movie where Bela Lugosi plays the monster, because I can't remember if it was starting with Ghost of Frankenstein. Yeah, I do not say blah blah blah. Yeah, that incarnation of Dracula. That's the Bela Lugosi version. Although he never does say blah blah blah. There's more just hello. My name is Dracula. Probably one of my favorite lines. How does the line go? Creatures of the night, what music they make. I think it was in his introduction scene. I don't remember what order those lines go in. I think I said it correctly though. But anyway, there is a. I know that Karloff played the Mummy for at least the first 3 Frankenstein movies. I think he might have played him in Ghost of Frankenstein as well. But if he did, that would have been the last time that he played the Frankenstein's monster. And then other people played him. I think Lon Chaney Jr., the Wolfman, I think he might have played him in one of the crossover movies. Although that would have been one of the movies where the Wolfman wasn't in it. But I'm trying to remember. But Bela Lugosi actually does wind up playing the Frankenstein monster at one point. Although his performance got extremely marred by something very unfortunate. And that is the fact that while they were filming it with the intention of the Frankenstein monster being blind. And so during his performance, Bela Lugosi is holding his hands out as if he's, feeling around. Now that plot point got taken away. So now you have Frankenstein's monster, holding his hands out like this and walking around, and it makes absolutely no sense, and it looks absolutely goofy if you don't understand the context behind it. However, if you think about, the cliche cartoony version of Frankenstein, what is he usually doing? He's holding his hands out while he walks. So while Karloff might be the face of what we think of as Frankenstein's monster today, Bela Lugosi was the originator of the Frankenstein walk. That was how he walked in his movie, and it was because he was supposed to be blind in that movie, but the plot got changed after it was already filmed. So, interesting little bit of trivia there. Yeah. So he wound up having his stamp on the character after all. So anyway, going back to the Mummy movie. So yeah, starting with Mummy's Hand, it's Karis as the mummy. And they follow their own plot line where there's these priests who are basically controlling the mummy and have him go out and kill people. And interestingly enough, it's kind of like a combination of the plots of the original and the sequel plot lines that were the inspiration for the later Mummy movies, the Brendan Fraser ones. Come to think of it, I probably should have pulled those out, although I don't consider those to be horror movies. They're more adventure, swashbuckling, pulp films. So they're not part of what I'm showing off today. But yeah, so it was a combination of the two versions that the Brendan Fraser trilogy was based on, especially those first two movies. So then we get to The Invisible Man, and this is a very interesting series, although this is one of those where I do have to actually go back in and start watching through them again to figure out which one was which. But we got The Invisible Man, The Invisible Man Returns, The Invisible Woman, The Invisible Agent, The Invisible Man's Revenge, and of course, Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man. Now, interesting thing with these is each Invisible Man is invisible person, I guess in this case, is a different person in each movie. So you got the original Invisible Man, which I believe, kind of spoiler alert, I think he dies at the end of the first one. And then The Invisible Man Returns, it is kind of a direct follow-up, but it's a different Invisible Man, if I'm remembering this correctly. I think even with the first two, it is a different person. But the first two, at the very least, follow a set continuity. One is a direct sequel to the other one. But then starting with The Invisible Woman, canon kind of sort of goes out the window. They make passing references. I think in The Invisible Agent, they made a passing reference that, it's supposed to take place within the same universe. But this one definitely fell victim of to the whole, that does not make any sense. The Invisible Woman, obviously, it's a woman takes, basically, there's this formula, essentially, that, turns you invisible. And it's kind of a different formula, Invisible Woman, even though it was the first one in the first two. Or it was just one in the first two. But Invisible Woman's more of a comedy than it is a horror film. Sort of a romantic comedy at that. And just, person turns invisible, shenanigans and or murder ensue. That's basically the plot of all these movies. Invisible Agent, that one's kind of an interesting one. Where basically someone is turned invisible. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if it was of his own volition or if someone actually made him turn invisible and then sent him behind the front lines in World War II. So it's basically the Invisible Man fights the Nazis. So yeah, that one's kind of an interesting one. The Invisible Man's Revenge. I'm trying to remember how that one went. I think it was one where just a real bad dude wound up taking the formula and wound up going and, obviously getting revenge on people. I think that's what happened with that one. I need to go back and rewatch Invisible Man's Revenge and see what I can remember from that. And then there's Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. Let's see. Should have just doing a blue suit occasionally, wearing glasses or some. Actually, here's an interesting thing. Blue screen technology wasn't really a thing back when these movies were made. So these were made from 1933 to 1944 were the proper, and then 1951 was Abbott and Costello. But yeah, I'd have to actually go through and watch some of the special features are on that, because I know that it wasn't done through any kind of blue screen technology that we'd be familiar with today. I'm not sure exactly what method they used to create the invisible effect. If I had to take a guess, it probably had something to do with multiple film stock, just multiple passes, recording one thing and then running the film back through and recording something else. Yeah, they're very old films, so it's amazing some of the stuff that they were able to pull off with the limited technology that they would have had and just the limited stuff they had access to. But Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. This one I think revolves around a boxing match. Like there's this boxer, he winds up turning invisible, and they kind of. There's this match where I think I don't remember if it was Abbott or Costello wound up having to do the match, and the Invisible Man was a boxer and basically helping him out. As enjoyable as this film is on its own, it is a bit of a sour pill to swallow, because at the end of, I think it might have been, let's see, I think it was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, but at the end of one of the Abbott and Costello movies, the one that preceded Meet the Invisible Man, they had teased Abbott and Costello meeting the Invisible Man at the very end. Like literally the last few moments of the movie was the Invisible Man showing up as they're rowing away in the boat, in a boat, like a rowboat, saying, hello, gentlemen, I'm the Invisible Man. Nice to meet you. And just lighting up a pipe. However, in that scene, the Invisible Man is voiced by Vincent Price, who is one of the big, old school, horror icons, mostly of the probably the late 40s and all throughout the 50s. He's the guy behind the original versions of The Fly, House of Wax, House on Haunted Hill, and probably I think one of if not his last film, definitely one of his last films was as Edward Scissorhands' father. That was one of, if not his last role on screen. Yeah, but oh my God, just that tease. Vincent Price as the Invisible Man, one of the greatest voices in horror, playing a character that is pretty much all voice. That would have been incredible. But Abbott and Costello Meet Invisible Man, it does not follow on with that end credit scene, or that end scene. It's a completely different person playing him. And so as enjoyable as Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man is, there's always that, oh man, what could have been? Oh, what could have been? But yeah, it's the Invisible Man series. Then we get to The Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr. in The Wolfman. The Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and then we've got Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London. I barely remember Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm just going to get those out of the way. Werewolf of London actually they've got it out of order here, but that one actually preceded The Wolfman. So they had a completely different werewolf movie before they actually did a proper werewolf series. Although it's hardly a series, most of the sequels are part of what's the word I'm looking for? Crossover films. So yeah, Lon Chaney Jr. plays the Wolfman, and the undisputed classic out of all these movies would absolutely be the original Wolfman. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, I remember it being really enjoyable. And the rest, you got your classic, pulpy meats, and it becomes this almost a joke the way that this poor guy who turns into a werewolf, I mean, he just, at a certain point, he just wants to die. And it's pretty much impossible to kill him. But yet he keeps turning into a werewolf and hurting people against his will. And he just wants it to be over, man. And it just becomes increasingly more and more sad as the series goes on that he can't have that final rest. Although I think... I'm trying to remember. I think by the end of it, they finally did find a way to kill him off. But then I think they brought him back in Abbott and Costello, Meet Frankenstein, and I don't remember. I think they actually managed to give him somewhat of a happy ending, but it's once again, it was a binge, so I don't remember most of the later ones. But one of the early ones that I watched when I actually had time to watch it was The Wolfman, and here's a really interesting piece of trivia. There is a scene, I believe it is towards the end of the movie, where a musical cue comes up. And I remember watching this, and I was looking away when it queued up, and I immediately just jerked my head back to the screen. Just throw a frisbee. But I immediately jerked my head back at the screen when I heard this musical cue come up, because my head immediately went, hold on, that music is straight up Batman 89. And I'm like, what is his name? The composer, Danny Elfman. I'm like, did Danny Elfman rip off the music from The Wolfman? Turned out, yeah, he was actually inspired by the music in the first movie, and you can hear a very similar rendition of one of the musical cues from The Wolfman in Batman 89. And that blew my mind when I heard that. I'm like, oh, that is so friggin' cool. And interestingly enough, he actually went on to, Danny Elfman went on to do the music for the Wolfman remake. I forget what year that one came out, but there was a Wolfman remake sometime in the mid to late 2000s, and they had Danny Elfman do the score for it. And I'm like, that's so appropriate. I have not actually seen that movie. That's not nice, or is it good? I'm not sure what you're... Oh yeah. I loved the fact that he took inspiration from that. I mean, it's not exact, but it is so close. I wish I had it queued up, but it is so close to almost the exact same tune. I've played it for people just completely out of context, and they're like, "Oh, that's just straight up from Batman." I'm like, "Nope, no, it's not. That's the Wolfman, actually." But everyone who's seen Batman 89 will instantly recognize it and probably already knows the moment I'm talking about. Oh, but that was fun. And I mean, and that makes sense because, the whole ending of the 89 Batman movie takes place, in that bell tower, and it feels like something that would have been like a set piece that would have been in a classic Universal monster movie. It's very appropriate in that regard. Okay, so then we go into the only movie in this collection, or the only box in this collection that only has one movie on it, and that's Phantom of the Opera, because there was only one Phantom of the Opera movie made by Universal. And as this one, it is also, as you can see on the back there, the only movie in this collection that is in color. And let me just open that up and show that. I don't know if I showed inside to some of these others, but yeah. Readjusting again. Hold on. But yeah, Phantom of the Opera. Not a musical, unlike you'd see nowadays. Because, you know, the musical stage version actually came out in 1986. Before that, there were some that had music in it, which makes sense because, you know, it's about an opera. But basically, I'm trying to give the loosest version of what Phantom of the Opera is so that it can also apply to this version, because this version makes a drastic change. But basically, you have this, this Phantom, this opera that basically works behind the scenes to help out this opera singer named Christine. And he basically becomes kind of sort of possessive of her, tries to take her away from the guy that she intends to marry, ultimately resorting to kidnapping her. But eventually he sort of sees the error of his ways, but by that point a whole mob is basically coming after him and he has to run. That is a general broad how the plot of Phantom of the Opera goes. Though in most versions he always dwells underneath the opera house, like in the sewers and stuff like that. In this one, he actually starts off as an opera singer, and sort of one thing leads to another, and he winds up getting burned by acid, which disfigures his face. Which the thing is, he wears this mask because his face is disfigured. And in the original book and in like the 1920s version and a lot of other versions, he was born that way. But in this one, he was disfigured by acid, and a lot of later adaptations would implement the whole he got burned by acid, but they would have it as a how do I word this? Like he didn't know Christine before. Like he actually knows Christine before in this version. That's something that's also very unique to this version. And because of the video that Razorfist just put up today, of all days, that I was going to do this, I could have looked at it, I'm like, I've got 2 Phantom of the Opera movies that I'm going to wind up talking about today, and he goes and does this movie about, or does a video about a whole bunch of Phantom of the Opera ones. But what was I about to say about that? I forgot where I was going with that. In any case, Phantom of the Opera. A fun movie. Razorfist mentioned that this one was his favorite, but not my favorite. The 1920s version, I forget what year specifically it is my favorite. And we'll get to that one eventually. I got a lot of movies to go over. But yes, it's still a fun movie. It does some things wrong. It does some things right, in my opinion. But overall, good, solid Phantom of the Opera film. Wait, hold on. What time is it for you right now? What time is it for me? 9:21. Okay, and then we've got The Creature from the Black Lagoon, which only has 3 movies. Creature from the Black Lagoon, Revenge of the Creature, and The Creature Walks Among Us. Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. It's honestly nice to have someone to interact with. I just kind of did this impromptu, and I normally don't even have anyone in my chat. I'm basically trying to build up an audience at this point, because I've been so inconsistent over the years, and I'm just trying to really get to it and actually make this a serious thing. And I usually do a lot of live streams where I'm playing video games, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. I want to get back to, like, back in the day, I used to talk about movies all the time, but I had this, full-on costume. And if you saw the thumbnail of this, that's me in the full costume. Although I did have a different costume that wasn't a hoodie that I am now using for the Ratsu character. I still don't know what I'm going to do with him. Probably going to be mostly used for in my book promotions. Because if you see in the, I don't know, okay, so you're watching this, oh yeah, on YouTube, so yeah, you'll definitely see on Rumble, so you'll definitely see in the comments section, or in the description or whatever, there's a link to my books. And I'm using the character Ratsu as sort of a promotional figure for that with Trilateral Transistor. The books that I'm writing, I'm going to go off on this tangent because whatever. It's my stream. I'll do what I want. But I have a set universe that all my books are taking place in, and it's called the Trilateral Realms. I've got 2 books out right now. I'm working on a 3rd, which is long overdue. There's Tales from the Trilateral Realms, and then there's Midnight Falls Book 1 in the House of Cranes. Right now, that first book, Tales from the Trilateral Realms, is the only one I have physical. And right now I'm focusing on the digital versions just because a lot easier and cheaper to focus on those at the moment. I remember, watch your video streams when you played Raft sometime. Oh, yeah! Oh, that was a few years ago. Oh, my goodness. Man, I haven't played Raft in a while. But in any case, so we've got the Black Lagoon films, and yeah, these suffered pretty severely from me binging in that last minute binge, trying to get all the movies that I own watched. But yeah, the first one takes place in the lagoon. The Revenge of the Creature does sort of in the first part. It's basically these people that go off and they they find this creature in a lagoon, essentially. I forget what they're doing there. That's one of those things where it's kind of muddy in my mind. But yeah, the creature, winds up, kills a bunch of people from that group until they eventually subdue it. Or they... I'm trying to remember exactly how it ended. That is one that I definitely need to do justice by going back and rewatching. But in any case, Revenge of the Creature... people go out, they find the creature, they capture the creature, and they bring the creature into civilization. I think that was Revenge of the Creature. And that was like towards the end. And then the creature walks among us. That one, they basically try to essentially domesticate him. I think he can talk in that one. Once again, oh my goodness. I need to go back and rewatch these movies. But I remember them being fun. I guess with Creature Walks Among Us being the end of the Universal monster cycle, it didn't exactly go off on the strongest note, but Creature from the Black Lagoon, the original, is universally, obviously considered the best of the bunch, and it is sort of seen, it's the last great classic monster. And a little bit of interesting trivia as well. Revenge of the Creature, I believe it was the film debut, albeit in a very small, brief role, of Clint Eastwood. And Back to the Future Part 2 actually takes place in 1955, which is the year that this actually came out. And when in Back to the Future Part 3, when they actually go back, they obviously go to a movie theater, or a drive-in movie theater, and this of course takes place in 1955. And when Marty says, Clint Eastwood never wore anything like this, and he comes out in the cowboy outfit, in the background you can actually see the poster for Revenge of the Creature, which was the film debut of Clint Eastwood. That's a fun little bit of trivia. In any case, I spent so freaking long on this one, but that is, the Universal Classic Monsters. Just really fun watches. Oh my goodness, this is still out. Let me slip this one back in real quick. But yeah, the Universal monster movies, a lot of them are absolute bangers, especially the earlier ones. They're classics. I think if you love film, especially the earlier ones, your Draculas, your Frankensteins, The Mummy, Invisible Man, and Bride of Frankenstein, as well as The Wolfman. Those are like the big ones. It's like, oh, you have to see that if you consider yourself a movie fan or a horror fan, just to see just the origins of a lot of these iconic movie monsters. Set that aside now, and we can finally move on to another set. Let me out. Okay. And we're going to move on to the Hannibal Lecter movies. So right here I've got a box set, which comes with Manhunter, Manhunter, Silence of the Lambs, and Hannibal. Now, as far as I'm aware, the only one that actually works now out of this box set, because, sometimes discs go bad, is Silence of the Lambs, which that's okay because that's the only one that I don't happen to have a sort of a backup version of. So let me pull these out real quick here. Got a little booklet that comes with it. And then we got Manhunter. Now, it was actually, I think more people probably know this nowadays, but Silence of the Lambs is actually a sequel to this movie. And these were all based on books. And the book that Manhunter is based on is actually called Red Dragon, which is how future adaptations now call it. Silence of the Lambs came out and, kind of exploded. Interestingly enough, while the character of Hannibal Lecter is in Manhunter, he's actually played by a different actor. He is played by, I'm pretty sure it's going to say it here, Brian Cox, who, if you've ever seen the TV show Succession, he was the dad from Succession. And what I most knew him from before watching this was actually he's the sergeant from Super Troopers. Probably one of my favorite comedy lines of all time is when someone in that asked him, "Are you drunk?" And he's like, "Drunk enough to kick your ass." Absolute banger. But yeah, Manhunter is basically this. I was going to call him a cop, but he isn't actually a cop. Does it say who he is? I think he works for the former FBI profiler. So he's a retired FBI profiler. Basically has to come out of retirement he's convinced to come out of retirement to help track down a serial killer known as the Tooth Fairy. Basically sneaks into people's homes at night and murders them horrifically. And basically just trying to find out. And basically his I'm trying to remember what his name is. Will Graham is the guy's name. And they want to bring him back because he has this very good knack for getting inside a killer's head. But he really doesn't like to do it. He doesn't like getting into the mind of a killer. Mostly because the case that caused him to retire was the case where he wound up catching his own therapist, Hannibal Lecter. And basically, Hannibal had helped him in catching serial killers before. And so there's a scene where he basically goes and... Oh, what? Oh, I don't know what's happening, but I love it. I'm basically going through my horror movie collection. And basically just talking about things that I remember from when I watched and just showing off interesting little tidbits. But in any case... where was I at? So yeah, Will actually winds up going to Hannibal, who's in prison after Will actually caught him or helped catch him, and basically almost killed him in the process. Hannibal Lecter. There was some kind of confrontation. Now in this movie. And I also believe in the original novel, which I have actually read part of. I need to read the rest of I need to read all the books. But in the original book, Red Dragon, but I don't know if they ever actually eventually described the part where Hannibal almost killed him in the book. But I know in this movie that it's just mentioned. But yeah, Hannibal tried to kill him. Basically got caught. And Hannibal, well, he's a cannibal, and he was serial killer. I know I'm not getting all like nervous and stuff. I need to get used to doing this. That way I'm not as, jittery as I am right now, and I'm better able to explain things. I'm also doing a kind of video that I've never done before, so I'm all over the place. Don't mind me. But yeah, this was a really good movie. It's kind of weird, or at least it was, seeing someone else playing Hannibal Lecter. Brian Cox, he does a pretty decent job. But interestingly enough, this was retold in a remake, which I'll show off in just a minute here. The remake was actually called Red Dragon. So it was adapted for film twice. What's your favorite movie? I love found footage. My favorite movie of all time or horror? Let's see. When it comes to horror, while I don't think it's the best, my personal favorite, and we'll get to it eventually, is Halloween. I'll talk about that whole story when I get to it. But while I don't think it's necessarily the best movie ever made, it is my personal favorite horror film. Probably in my top 10 of my favorite films ever made. But yeah, I have a personal... If you couldn't tell from my avatar here, this is supposed to be a Michael Myers mask. And if you saw the thumbnail, I'm actually wearing an old Walmart Michael Myers mask in that thumbnail, which this is actually based on. And this is my Halloween rendition of this character. And the little lines that I've got coming down are basically supposed to represent in Halloween 2 when he gets shot in the eyes and the blood starts pouring out. Yeah, I kind of made a reference to Halloween 2 with this avatar. But anyway, so yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it. Anyway, back to this. Manhunter, really great film. So like I say, it was adapted twice as a film. But then there's the TV show Hannibal. And when Hannibal was getting canceled, they basically decided to make the last few episodes a retelling of Red Dragon. Let's see. Have you seen Under Pairs? Because my friend says it. I have not seen that. No, I'm not. Never even heard of Under Pairs. Huh. That's something to look into. But anyway, there are actually 3 separate adaptations of Red Dragon. Manhunter, and then Red Dragon the movie, and then the multi-part Red Dragon episodes of the Hannibal TV show, which leads to some very interesting scenarios where you can watch like individual scenes and see interesting ways about how they adapted those scenes. The one that sticks out to me is actually where Will goes to talk to Hannibal in prison. And all 3 adaptations pretty much use the dialogue, and I've read the book, so I know this for a fact. They reuse, or they use the dialogue from the book almost verbatim for the entire scene. So you basically have the same script being adapted 3 drastically different ways by different directors, and it's a fascinating... Like, if you want to see the different ways that you can adapt something, Manhunter, Red Dragon, and the last arc of the Hannibal TV show. It is fascinating. Although, in the Hannibal TV show, they do drastically change the ending. The ending of the Hannibal TV show is not canon to the books or the movie series. They made a wild change that completely makes that non-canon, but I don't know whether I love it or hate it or not. It's unique, and I'm glad that they had the balls to go for it because they were getting canceled. But anyway, so yeah, Manhunter. Actually, before I put this away, because this copy no longer works, I decided, instead of just rebuying this box set, because I already had another version of Hannibal, the movie Hannibal, not the TV show. That gets confusing. I decided I'd go ahead and upgrade my copy. This is the limited edition. You can find these pretty cheap on like eBay. This is a 2-disc, rather bulky edition, which has the original theatrical cut, as well as a director's cut, which I have not actually watched yet, and is an absolutely terrible quality, and it's probably in better quality on the out-of-print Shout Factory Blu-ray, but I don't own that. And if you go to look at the prices that it's going for on eBay, you will see why I do not own that, and I wish I had gotten it when I had the chance. I don't know if the director's cut is in any better quality in that version. I hope they remastered it. But all I have to work with when it comes to watching it is the really terrible transfer that's on the second disc of this. Really good transfer of the first one. But yeah, and this one actually comes with a whole bunch of like bonus features and commentaries and stuff like that. And there's also, I don't know if I want to do this with these gloves on, but I love that this comes with this whole little confidential thing. You got like the chapter listings and just a bunch of like pictures and like case file stuff. And stuff I haven't even read through this yet. I actually got this within the last year. Because that's when my brother started backing up the movies and said, "Hey, your Manhunter doesn't work anymore." I'm like, son of a... But I actually have this backed up. I went through and started ripping a bunch of my movies, even though he had already ripped them. But just ones that I wanted quick access to in case I ever wanted to watch them. But yeah, Manhunter, it's a great film. Great watch. Set that over here. So yeah, now with Manhunter out of the way, I'll just slip that in here. We of course come to, you know, the classic, the best film in the franchise by far, Silence of the Lambs. I mean, it won multiple Oscars for a reason. In terms of, you know, an actual quality horror film, and I definitely would qualify this as horror, even though some people might not. It's technically a crime film. Yeah, this is probably one of the best made horror films of all time, if that's even a term that I can use to describe it. But yeah, so yeah, this is the one where they cast Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter for the first time, who's by far the most iconic version of the character. It also has Jodie Foster, and both Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster... I get Oscars and Academy Awards confused, but they both won Academy Awards for like Best Actor and Best Actress. Or was it Supporting Actor? Or I don't know how that works. I don't keep up with that anyway. I'm not really concerned with awards, but they definitely earned those awards. That's for damn sure. So yeah, basically Jodie Foster plays a sort of it's like a trainee FBI agent who is trying to catch a killer. And so yeah, the first one, it was the Tooth Fairy. Buffalo Bill is the killer in this one, who is basically kidnapping women, skinning them alive to try to make a there's no better word to put it, a woman suit. Very disturbing. Lots of creepy and disturbing stuff in this movie. Hard R, naturally, as any good horror movie should be. But yeah, basically, she's working with Hannibal to try to catch this killer, and there's sort of this odd relationship that develops between the two as the film goes on, which would be explored more in the sequel to very odd results. But no, Silence of the Lambs is an absolute bona fide classic. Yeah, you only need 16 minutes of screen time to win that Oscar. Yeah, he's not in as much of the movie as you would think, but man, when he is on screen, he absolutely dominates. But yeah, absolutely all-time classic right there. Oh, what's not nice? The stuff that happens in the movie? Yeah, a lot of not nice stuff happens. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but so yeah, then we come to Hannibal, which is actually directed by Ridley Scott, oddly enough. Definitely got at least one Ridley Scott movie coming up. And if you know, you know. Oh, shoot, what's happening to my model? Oh, there we go, okay. So yeah, Hannibal. Julianne Moore takes over as Clarice, who is the character that Jodie Foster played to an Oscar win in Silence of the Lambs. Oh yeah, she takes over as Clarice in this one. Probably because Jodie Foster read the script. Or the book that it's based on, which I would love to read the original book, because I hear that the book is even wilder than this. Now, would... the movie, not the house. But yeah, so anyway, Hannibal. Would I consider this to be a good movie? I don't know. There are aspects of this film that are terrible, and there's aspects of this film that I'm like, I don't care how insane it is, I kind of love it. And it's kind of like with this movie. There's something about this movie that I just kind of love, despite how many flaws it has. So, yeah, so Hannibal, kind of, spoiler for this one, but you kind of have to spoil what happens at the end of Silence of the Lambs in order to even talk about Hannibal. But yeah, he escapes. And basically, this is about Clarice trying to find him. I'm trying to think if she's trying to find him or if they're going after someone else. It's been years since I've seen it. But yeah, basically, Hannibal comes into the picture, and basically it's this cat and mouse game, trying to find him, and it ultimately culminates in an ending scene that I don't want to spoil for anyone who hasn't seen it. But to say that this movie takes a wild left turn would be an understatement. The ending of this movie is kind of infamous. And like I said, it takes some wacky directions. The way that the relationship between Clarice and Hannibal kind of develops. This movie is not for everyone. But if you love it, you love it. Although there's plenty of people who say that this absolutely ruined the franchise. And not just the movie, the book that it's based on too, which all the books were written by the same guy. But yeah, if you want something that just, I would liken it to the later Chucky movies. Like, if you're just along for the wild, crazy ride, you're going to have some fun. And a lot of, gross and creepy stuff along the way as well. So yeah, that's Hannibal. Let me put this away. I think that was supposed to be at the front, but oh well. Alright. And let me pull from the rest of these here. So yeah, I also now have the 2-disc edition, which I think I have a no, I think this is the only other version of Hannibal that I have, but this is the 2-disc edition, which oddly enough, in this box set, they literally just took the first disc from this 2-disc edition and put it in here. So they kind of reused it for this. But yeah, let's say, fun bonus features to go with that. I don't know if that's showing up clearly, but I just want to show that off. So yeah, I've already said my piece on that movie. So then, following that, they actually made Red Dragon proper. Now, the one I'm holding right here is the full screen edition, even though I do have the widescreen edition. I just, as I was looking through my horror movies, I just didn't have that one on hand, or I couldn't figure out which box I put it in. But I was able to find my full screen version. So yeah, this is a readaptation of the first book. There was Manhunter, which was based on the book Red Dragon. I keep having to adjust these gloves. But then they decided to readapt it, supposedly more faithfully to the book. I didn't get to the end of the book, so I don't exactly know how the book ends, so I don't know how faithfully the story actually ends. But they have two drastic endings, different endings, this movie and Manhunter. This was directed by Brett Ratner, but don't hold that against it. And interestingly enough, this is, Anthony Hopkins in the first movie, where he wasn't in Manhunter. I think that was one of the big reasons why they wanted to readapt Red Dragon, was to have a consistent Hannibal throughout the series. And I really loved this movie. There are aspects of Manhunter I love better, which Manhunter, who was the director? It was Michael Mann, who, God, he's directed a bunch of stuff. Michael Mann directed Heat, and just a bunch of other crime films. He directed Miami Vice, both the TV series and the movie. Or he was at least the creator of Miami Vice. And so yeah, Michael Mann directed that one. Brett Ratner directed this one. There are aspects of each that I prefer to the other ones. I think overall I would prefer this one, if for nothing else, just because of how great Anthony Hopkins is as Hannibal Lecter, and just the fact that they brought him back for this. Just mwah. But yeah, it's more or less it's just a more, the other one was in the 80s, and this is just a more modern, as of, the early 2000s adaptation of the exact same story. And this one actually has a scene in it at the beginning, which I don't remember being in the book, where you actually see Will Graham capture Hannibal Lecter, which wasn't shown in the first one. And interestingly enough, with this one, I believe this follows the ending of the book, but like I said, once again, I haven't read the ending of the book, so I don't know. But because of this and the changes they made to Manhunter and the wild left turn that they took with the last few episodes of the Hannibal TV series, there are 3 drastically different endings to this story now. Go figure. And then we come to Hannibal Rising. And I wish I could say a bunch of stuff about this movie, but I barely remember it. I watched it whenever it first came out. I got this DVD when it was brand new and still in Walmart. And I remember kind of enjoying it and forgetting it. So that tells you just how much of an impact this movie left. But I don't remember hating it. Go ahead and pull this out here. Oh, it's one of those clip cases. That's all. And there's just a promotion for the book. Now, my understanding is that he was kind of pressured into writing the book so that they could make it into a movie. So this is a studio project through and through, from what I understand, and I could be completely wrong, but my understanding is, yeah, that was how that went down. But yeah, that is the Hannibal Lecter franchise. I don't have the TV series, but the Hannibal TV series is basically a prequel that follows the exploits of Will Graham, often working with Hannibal Lecter to take down different serial killers. And I'd have to go back and actually rewatch the series, but I remember loving it and not being entirely sure how I felt about the ending. But I did remember thinking that they did a really good job adapting Red Dragon. I forget how many episodes they adapted it over. It was like, I can't remember if it was just like 2 episodes or maybe it was like 4 or 5. It's been so long, I don't remember. Yeah, I watched that when it first aired, and yeah, very interesting franchise with its ups and downs. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to another franchise here. I can't wait until all these franchises are over and I can just start talking about individual movies. Flip these real quick. Now, this is a series that I pretty much need to go back from the very beginning and rewatch some of them. Others, not so much because, well, you'll understand as we go on. Hellraiser. This is one of those where, once again, I watched it when it first came out. I've watched clips of it again and again over the years. All the the best lines. We have such sights to show you. Mr. Cotton, I presume. All Just absolute bangers. But yeah, a little pinhead on the back there. This is the 20th anniversary. I want to get the I think it's called the Quartet of Terror, but it's a Blu-ray and I think 4K collection which has the first 4 movies. So yeah, one of these days I want to upgrade these, but for the time being I just have the DVDs. I mean, I also want to do the same thing with the Hannibal Lecter movies, but so you got to get a different back there when you take the slipcover off. And I love the pattern that's on the disc there. Oh yeah, it's kind of gonna be bummed by my lack of knowledge here because, like I said, when I first got this disc, I watched it along with I think the first 4, and I haven't watched them since. So my memory is very hazy. And to give you an idea of how long it has been since I have actually watched, these movies in their entirety. Once again, I've seen clips over the years. Is I think at least the first 4 movies, probably more than that, I wound up buying from a Suncoast in a local mall that was going out of business. And if you're old enough to remember Suncoast and how long it's been since they have been out of business, that gives you an idea of just how long ago I actually watched Hellraiser. It probably would have been around 2008 or 2009. Heck, it's possible that it could have even been 2007 for all I know. Late 2007, but yeah. So basically, this puzzle box that's showing on here, you solve the box and you essentially summon demons who are really masochistic and will basically torture the shit out of you. Why someone would willingly open that box? There are masochists out there. Look that word up for yourself if you don't know what it means. But if you're watching a live stream right now about someone going over horror movies, you probably already know. But yeah, I need to go back and watch the scene that I really remember, and one of the biggest reasons why I want to go back and rewatch this is the scene where the guy who gets taken at the beginning of the movie, essentially his body reforms, and he's just muscles at that point, and just him coming together, like coming to a bloody puddle on the floor and just reforming himself like skeleton, and then the muscles forming it. It's grotesque, and it's done with practical effects, and it is beautiful. But of course, the main takeaway that a lot of people got from that was Pinhead, played by Doug Bradley. Still the best Pinhead. And I wish we could get another Hellraiser movie with Doug Bradley. If he's even still willing to do it. I mean, you could hide a lot of how old he's gotten with makeup, couldn't you? Please, pretty please. Double goes for Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. We'll get to that, certainly. But yeah, so this is the 20th anniversary version of Hellraiser that I've got here. And then I've got this copy of Hellraiser 2, which I kind of remember enjoying Hellraiser 2 a little bit more. I know I'm probably not alone in that. I know a lot of people seem to hold up Hellraiser 2, if nothing else, the best sequel in the series, if not the better movie. But I'd have to actually go back and rewatch both of them and see basically what my opinions are of them now. But I remember towards the end of them going to essentially hell in this. I mean, it's called Hellbound, so. But I'm trying to remember if it actually is hell or if it's like some other kind of like limbo dimension or whatever, where the creatures that come out of the box are called Cenobites, and like this realm where the Cenobites basically torture you. Let me go and open this up real quick. Yeah, and there's two more behind him. That's I'm trying to remember their names. I can't remember if it was just Chatter or Chatter something, and was it Butterball? I'm trying to remember what that one was called. But yeah, I remember that. Just in terms of horror sequels, because horror sequels can get kind of sketchy. You know, they got that reputation. But this is one of the better horror sequels ever made. And then we have Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth, which I remember my main takeaway. Once again, only watched it once a long time ago, and I remember my main takeaway being, "Wow, there's kind of a cheap feeling to this one." And I know that it has its fans, and it has a lot of people who absolutely despise the ground that was stood on by anyone who was involved in this. Because there's some goofy Cenobites that are introduced in this, or the CD one especially. It like literally throws CDs at people. It's weird, but yeah, just, you know, the Cenobites walking around on Earth, killing people, torture. I very distinctly remember a nightclub scene that was pretty brutal, and yeah, so there actually is at least one featurette on this, but I know that there's... Oh, it's one of the clip cases again. I know there's a lot more... I think there's a bunch more special features in that Quartet of Terror. One of these days, I will own that. Unless it goes out of print and starts skyrocketing in price. Crossing my fingers and knocking on wood, hoping that doesn't happen. Ah! That was a slip up. Okay, anyway. Hellraiser Bloodlines, aka Hellraiser 4, the last theatrical Hellraiser film. And this one went through production hell like you would not believe. Production hell, haha. Appropriately enough, like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, there's no bonus features on this one. However, on that Quartet of Terror, it has a work print version of this movie, which is drastically different from what I understand. And I mean, it has unfinished effects and stuff like that. But yeah, this is the one, the inevitable let's put the killer in space movie. Although I actually do like the way that it's handled in this more than the typical, you know, killer in space movie, because the way that this movie works is that it's basically, as the name implies, it's going through the bloodline of someone who has interacted with the Cenobites, in particular Pinhead. And so it basically takes place across multiple time frames, multiple eras, and ultimately culminating in a setting in space, like aboard a space station. And there's this whole twist at the end, which even if I tried to remember, I don't know if I'd be remembering the alternate ending or the ending that's actually on here. Because the work print, that was one of the main things, is how drastically different the ending is from what I understand. But basically it's about, you know, sealing Pinhead away and, you know, destroying him once and for all, which, as we know, that wasn't the case. But yeah, it got butchered in the edit, and from what I understand, it absolutely bombed so bad that the rest of the films in the franchise went straight to home video. Starting with Hellraiser Inferno. Now, Hellraiser Inferno is an interesting movie for me because a lot of people despise this movie. I have seen it twice. I remember enjoying it twice. And yet I only remember bits and pieces. I remember there's a big twist at the end that I really liked. And if I watched it a third time, I would probably still like it. However, I do see why people wouldn't. And if I'm being vague about the plots, it's because I vaguely remember the plots of a lot of these movies. So, but yeah, there actually is some special features on this one. Oh, including apparently an interview with Doug Bradley himself. But yeah, this is kind of, you know, infamous for the fact that it's a straight-to-home video movie, and just basically where that took the franchise from here, just getting cheaper and cheaper. And also, I think all except for the last one, I want to say, that I have, of these movies, I think including the ones that I have, or I don't know, I'll get to it when I get to it, but pretty much going forward, a lot of the scripts for these movies started off as other movies before being retrofitted to be Hellraiser sequels. And basically the only connective tissue being the fact that they got the puzzle box and that at least Pinhead shows up as a result. And that's really the only connection they have. All right. Yeah, I think this was the next one. Yeah, Hellseeker. This, they actually brought back the actress from the first two. I remember watching this. I remember liking parts of it, hating parts of it, and overall just kind of coming away indifferent from the whole experience. I remember there's I can't remember if there was like a twist and like a twist within a twist or something like that happened. I vaguely remember. But this was kind of a middling, they were clearly running out of steam. But that was actually one of the later ones that I watched, funny enough. Then Hellraiser Deader. I know that I've seen this once. I think I might have seen it twice. And I know that I liked it better than Hellseeker. I remember that. Don't remember a whole hell of a lot about the plot. I'm also noticing this guy, Rick Boda, basically directed all the straight-to-home video ones, up to a certain point anyway. But those are movies that I don't have. Or at least, I think there's 2 movies that I don't have. The last one that I have is Hellraiser Hellworld. So he went to space, now he goes online. It's basically like some video game kind of thing. God, I vaguely remember the plot of this. I do remember that it has, what's his face? Lance Hendrickson is in this. Which, that is probably the only interesting thing I can even say about this. I don't know if all the copies like this have this, but I've got it in this weird blue case for some reason. I don't remember if this is one that I got from Suncoast or if I bought it used later on. But this is a collection that I got, I think probably from Walmart, which has Hellraiser 3 through Hellworld. Let me readjust this real quick. Over on Kick and apparently on Twitch, do not be spamming that kind of stuff in my chat. I don't do that whole do this, get extra viewers kind of. It's all BS, and I'm not gonna. If only I had moderators. Anyway, got to get big enough for that first. But yeah, so this has on like multiple, turnover discs, double-sided, the Hellraiser sequels. I think they're just bare bones versions of them. But I got these to have backups of these movies, and because it comes with the Prophecy films, which the first 3 movies star Christopher Walken as, I think he's it's been so long since I've seen these, but I think he plays an angel. And I forget which angel he plays, though. And it's basically, essentially about Armageddon, essentially. I just keep saying that word over and over again. But I don't remember exactly what happens in these films. I just remember I really loved the first one. I was kind of found the plot of the second and third interesting. Those were straight-to-home video. And then there's the straight-to-home video movies that don't have Christopher Walken, and I remember those being pretty bad. Although, interestingly enough, the devil shows up in the first Prophecy movie, played by Viggo Mortensen, who you might remember from Lord of the Rings as Aragorn. or Aragorn, excuse me. That was a slip. But yeah, I think that was who played him in this. But oh my god, I remember that scene being really good. And of course, Christopher Walken is Christopher Walken. He's awesome. And that's really what I remember about those. And then, so yeah, a lot of the straight-to-home video Hellraiser movies are mostly kind of forgettable. But I do want to go back and just rewatch the whole franchise. And just, see what my thoughts are on them after all this time. Alright, let me set those down. Oh, it is going to be fun putting all this stuff back together when I'm done with this. So, moving on quickly to the next franchise. We have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let me readjust these gloves. This one I definitely remember I got from that Suncoast. Tobe Hooper directed this, who was also the same director of Poltergeist, which I actually had the chance to see in theaters recently. That was a fun experience. So yeah, a bunch of kids wind up in Texas in the middle of nowhere. Wind up coming across an entire family of psychopaths. And I guess I should mention this while I'm on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but Leatherface, who's seen here with the chainsaw, and also Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs were both inspired by the serial killer Ed Gein. And you probably already know about the Netflix series about Ed Gein that's out right now, which I am kind of refusing to watch out of principle, just because I literally knew enough about the true story to know that they absolutely had no intentions in that series of being historically accurate whatsoever, which I think is an absolute slap in the face and an insult to the actual victims and their families. Yeah, I do not recommend Monster, the Ed Gein story as a result of that, even though I have never watched it, just on principle. Screw that show. This at least had the good sense to make up a fictional story. So yeah, this one in particular, it very much goes for a documentary feel to the footage. Like, it's, I mean, for lack of better words, I mean, it almost comes across as snuff film. But it's very, like, rough with the photography and stuff like that. It is a look. I mean, this movie, it's very light on plot, but it makes up for it with a vibe that really none of the films that followed ever even attempted to recapture the same vibe as the original. Even some of the later films, they went for more of the aesthetics of the remake than anything, the more grungy look, rather than the more like found footage look without actually being found footage. Like it's an actual film, but just with a unique look to it. And yeah, as you can tell, this is a steelbook, which can't get this like gold color. I love this. I absolutely love the crap out of this. But yeah, the first film, absolute classic. There's one scene that has always stuck with me. And I believe it is actually the first time that you see Leatherface. This guy, walks into the house and he kind of stumbles through this doorway, and then Leatherface steps into the doorway. There's no like, musical sting or like in or anything like that. Everything goes quiet. He stands in the doorway. The guy sees him. He smacks the dude over the head with like a giant mallet, and then he falls over, and like you see his leg start twitching while he's on the ground. Leatherface pulls him in, slams the door, and it happens so fast. And it's absolutely silent. And by the time that door closes, it's just completely quiet. And it is just this unnerving moment. One of the best scares I've ever seen in a horror movie. And then, of course, there's the ending where the final person who lives is in the back of a pickup truck, just maniacally screaming and laughing at the same time, which apparently, from my understanding, and I think it came from some of the special features on this, but it's been so long since I've watched it that I'm kind of going off vague recollection once again. But the reason why her performance was so phenomenal in that final scene was because this was a hellish shoot and very hot on the set, because I think they actually did film it in Texas in the summer. And after the film was done, they basically had to reshoot the ending for whatever reason. I don't remember exactly why. I don't know if they changed the ending or they didn't like the way it came out, but they had to reshoot the ending. And I can't remember if it was that or maybe either way, her performance after the absolute hell that she had been through filming the movie was 100% genuine. Just not maniacal, the nervous laughter, the terrified laughter was very genuine, and this film leaves an impression, let me put it that way. And then we come to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, same director. And this has a completely different tone. This is practically a comedy. And it completely ditches the look of the first movie for a more traditional film look. And this is basically the more or less members of the family from the first one interacting more with society. Of the sound effects in that movie, it's been so long that I don't really remember them. Well, I did. If there was one series that I'm probably going to go back and rewatch first, it's probably going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, especially the first two. But I remember there's a radio DJ in this. I forget what the actress's name is. But yeah, she's... what year were these movies made? Oh, let me see. I know that the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the 70s. 1974 for the first one. And this would have been the 80s. Let's see. 1986. So there was a really long gap between the first and the second one. But the one thing that I really remember from this one, obviously they brought back Leatherface and the dad, and I thought they had brought back the son I had remembered, but apparently Chop Top is a completely different character. I just kind of figured he had the metal plate in his head because of what happened to him at the end of the first one, but I guess that character died, and Chop Top is a completely different character. I don't know. But in any case, UNC, I'm not sure what that means, but the one thing I really remember from this one is Dennis Hopper, may he rest in peace, his performance in this as a sheriff who has a vendetta against the family, the killer family. He, basically is determined to go after them at any cost. At any cost, and he is kind of absolutely out of his freaking mind. And he basically comes after them with not just one, but two chainsaws. And the one scene that I really vividly remember from the one time that I watched this is just Dennis Hopper with a chainsaw in the family's like underground lair that they have in this one, just chopping down support beams and just screaming at the top of his lungs, "Bring it all down!" And I know at a certain point he says, "I'm the Lord of the Harvest." It's just him going nuts. If you see this movie for any reason, see it for Dennis Hopper's out of his damn mind performance. It will, like the first one in general, that performance will stick with you. Okay. I wish I had more to say. about Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, but I have seen it twice, years and years and years ago, and I barely remember anything. I know that, let's see, yeah, Viggo Mortensen's in this. And there's all the Saw is family, which is written on the Saw. And that's about all I remember, if I'm being perfectly blunt. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can even say about this. I mean, it doesn't really follow continuity all that well at all, if I remember correctly. I don't think it was a reboot, but I remember not thinking it was bad, if that's anything to go by. I know this was like, a big, it was the first one made by a different director, and I know there was a lot of like studio interference that might have happened with this. This version is the R and unrated versions. I don't know the differences between those. But, yeah, I don't have nearly as much to say about this one as I do with the next film in the series, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. I know that there is another name that this movie goes by, but off the top of my head, I don't remember. But yeah, Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey are in this. Renee Zellweger is one of the teenagers that the family goes after, and Matthew McConaughey plays a member of the family. And there's the back of that here. Not really any special features. Now, I know that there is, I think it was Scream Factory who did a Blu-ray of this, which I really want to get, just to have some bonus features, just because I want to know what the hell went on behind the scenes of this movie. It is one of the most hilariously bad movies I have ever watched in my life, and I have seen some really bad movies. I can't say I wasn't entertained, because that would be a lie. This is a very entertaining movie for all the wrong reasons, and only for a few scenes. This scene it feels like they were filming this and writing it as they were going, because if you try to make sense of half the crap that is going on in this, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And there are two scenes that really stuck out to me. There's one scene where this guy and this girl are walking along, and I'm trying to remember exactly how the quote went, but she says something along the lines of, "I'm not really stupid, I just act that way so people will like me." And I remember thinking, what in the actual fuck does that mean? I have been for years trying to make sense of that line. And then there's a scene where this one kid is trying to get away from Matthew McConaughey. And he's going down this road, and on the side of this road is a little, it elevates a little bit before going into this forest. And then there's just a plain field on the other side. So forest on one side of this road, just nothingness on the other, just a field. And Matthew McConaughey is chasing him down in a pickup truck. And for whatever reason, this kid is acting like he is in a freaking video game, and there are invisible walls on either side of him, and he cannot get off the road. It makes absolutely no sense. This guy is supposed to be running for his life, and the entire time I'm watching this, I am like screaming out loud, "Just run into the woods. You will be fine. You can make it through this." But instead, he just keeps going until he is completely out of breath. And instead of running him down right then and there, Matthew McConaughey pulls up beside him with the window rolled down, and I forget what he says to them. So something like, "Out of breath, son," or something like that. And this kid, some of the worst acting I have ever seen in my life, And I'm trying to remember, I might be quoting this exactly, but he just he's panting, he goes, "Please, sir, what can I do?" And I'm like, you could run, you could attempt to have a preservation instinct of any kind. That's what you can do. So then I can't remember if he goes forward after that or goes backwards, but Matthew McConaughey just runs him down after that scene and just kills him. And I'm thinking, that was the most avoidable death probably in any horror movie I have ever seen. And then there's this whole like chase scene at the end. I remember like a crop duster comes down and like smacks into Matthew McConaughey and kills him. And then Leatherface, who is like straight up in drag for most of this film, starts crying and like swinging the chainsaw around, which he swings the chainsaw around at the end of the first one, and this is kind of supposed to be the first attempt at a remake, essentially, or a reboot at the very least. And whereas at the end of the first one, let me pull this back out, like you see him swinging the chainsaw around there. In the first movie, it was menacing at the end when you see him swinging the chainsaw around angrily. At the end of this movie, they kind of try to do the same thing. However, he's literally just spinning around, holding the chainsaw out directly, and it is the goofiest looking thing I have ever seen in my life. And I think the original chick who survived the end of the first one is it has like a cameo in a hospital at the end, and it doesn't really explain that all that well. Weird movie. I'll probably watch it again just because of how entertainingly bad it is. But boy, this one's a doozy. It'll stick with you. Okay. So then after that, I only have 2 more movies, so you already know which 2 those are, if you know this franchise. First one is the remake, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Platinum Dune movie. Probably one of the best horror remakes I've ever seen in my life. I have to go back and watch it because it's been a long time, but there are things I distinctly remember, like the main girl who survives to the end of the of this movie. I remember her boyfriend gets killed early on, and Leatherface actually wears his face. And there's also a part where, as Leatherface is basically handling the body, a ring pops out of, I think of his pocket or something like that. I don't remember if it was like in his jacket or something. I don't remember if he had I'm trying to remember how the scene went, but either way, ring falls off. It was a wedding ring because he was about to propose, and it's even hinted at early on. And you find this out after he died, and I'm like, oh man, that's actually kind of sad. And then of course later on, and she never finds out. That's the crazy part. She never actually finds out about this. We know about it because Leatherface found out about it, and he doesn't even know what the wedding ring's about. We just have the proper context, whereas the other characters don't. And I just thought that was really interesting. And of course, the dad in this one is played by, I forget what his name is. He's the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. And man, I honestly don't know who I like better, the original actor or him. And I'm trying to remember his name. Does it have his name on here? R. Lee Ermey. Yeah, he was phenomenal in this. You are a true OG YouTuber, Mono Grind. Hey, what's up? Long time no see. If you're anyone else who's just now coming in here, I'm basically just going over the horror movies that I own just for Halloween here. I still have a whole bunch to get through, so this is going to be a really long stream. Let me go ahead and actually pull this out here. Yeah, I like the way this kind of folds out here. When this originally came, this was wrapped in plastic, and this was kind of over that like that. And it's just this little metal thing that came with it. It's really cool. Finish it later. All right, it'll be here. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, we got this. It just this folds out. You get a little case evidence, kind of like the Manhunter thing. This is just one of my favorite like physical media things that I own right here, so I just had to show that off. But yeah, really, really solid remake. Night. Okay, and then at last in this series, we come to Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. I'd have to rewatch this to remember a lot of it, but a solid prequel for what it's worth. A lot of people hate this movie, like absolutely despise it. I never understood the hate. I mean, I get hating both the remake and this because it's basically just more of the same. I can't wait to see what we have. Oh man, I'm planning stuff. I don't know what all is going to come to fruition, but I plan on taking this seriously, mostly because I want to build up an audience, because I'm realizing that my main focus going forward is going to be as an author, and I'm learning very quickly that you kind of need to have an audience if you're going to hope to even get anywhere with that. So yeah, the links will always be in the description to my books if you ever want to check those out. The Kindle versions especially are super cheap, and they're like quick reads that you can knock out in an afternoon if you want to. But there's more on the way. I'm still working on the third book. I really have to get working on that probably tomorrow. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. It's basically just a prequel to the remake, and if you liked the remake, you might like this one, but there's apparently a lot of people who even enjoyed the remake who hate this one. I'd have to rewatch them in order to really see what people are talking about, because it's been so long once again. This is another one that I think I got from that Suncoast way back in the day. Back when I was regularly putting out videos in costumes that Mono Grinded was watching. Oh, man. Oh, I'm just now realizing the people that are watching on YouTube. I've got like multiple chat logs pulled up, and I'm noticing that Rumble is pulling from the YouTube chat logs, but it's not pulling from any of the others. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. I'm just now noticing that the YouTube logo is beside it. Anyway, so yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's the last one that I have, although there have been several more after that. I have not watched any of those movies. I have only seen up until the beginning. So let me set these aside now. And I'm going to try to go a little bit faster from here on out, because I have probably double what I've already shown off so far. Alright, so the next one here is Night of the Living Dead. You may not really want to have to say. Remember that is all part of God's plan, and you just have to trust it because He loves you. Oh, thank you so much. Actually, an interesting note of that. Kind of thinking, do I even say this on stream? But I'm kind of going through a bit of a spiritual reawakening in recent years. Not because of the best of reasons, not because of anything I did necessarily, but because of something that someone else did. I'm starting to refine my way there, if you catch my drift. But anyway, quickly moving along from that, Night of the Living Dead, George A. Romero. I usually like to say that I probably like about 5 or 6 zombie movies that I've ever seen, and about 4 or 5 of them were directed by Romero. I'm not usually the biggest zombie fan, but I have a soft spot for the works of George Romero. And it starts right here with Night of the Living Dead, the classic zombie movie. I think this was 1968, although it is in black and white. And it's basically people holding up in a house trying to... basically when a zombie apocalypse breaks out and they try to hide in there, and this you can tell is like very early on in a zombie apocalypse because most people are just living their normal lives. And in the Romero series, that's they kind of, I don't necessarily know if they necessarily follow a continuity, but it seems to be the same zombie apocalypse, but each movie follows a completely different set of characters. And I remember a little while back I started to watch the commentary on this, because this is the Millennium Edition. I don't know if you can even read that on there at the top. I love this red case, and I think this is also one of the ones I got from that old Suncoast. So it's been a while since I've seen this, but I remember the ending is very unfortunate. Yeah, it doesn't exactly have a happy ending, let me put it that way. It's a zombie movie. You wouldn't expect it to necessarily have that happy of an ending. But, yeah. Great movie. Absolute bona fide classic right there. I eventually want to get the Blu-rays of these. And, I'll mention something when I get to it. But, here's one that's going to be really hard to replace on Blu-ray. My Ultimate Edition of Dawn of the Dead, the second of the George Romero quadrilogy. And this is, like I said, the Ultimate Edition, which comes with, I wish I got this used so it doesn't have the thing on the back that tells you what all the bonus features and all that stuff are. I wish I did have that version, or I did have that, because it'd be nice to know. This absolute beauty right here. I gotta, hold on, let me unveil this. It keeps going. That's where a little booklet that it would have come with if I'd gotten this new. But look at this here. You've got the U.S. theatrical cut of the movie, the extended version, which I think is like an international cut, the European version. Oh, I think there's only 3 versions. Yeah, the U.S. theatrical cut, the extended cut, and the European version, which I believe is called Zombie with an I. And I think Dario Argento might have been involved at that, if I remember correctly. I need to watch all the bonus stuff of this. I think each one has different commentaries and stuff. I don't know what the different the differences between the different cuts are, because I've only actually watched this movie once, so this is definitely one that I need to watch again. And so basically this is the one where they're in a mall. If you ever know the cliche, monsters in a mall scenario, this movie, Dawn of the Dead, the original, what? I don't think this one's going to show the year because I don't have the little booklet that came with it, but this was sometime in the 70s that this one came out. It might have been the early 70s if I remember correctly. Maybe 74, 73, 74, something like that. I don't know. I don't think it was the late 70s. Or, wait a minute. No, it could have been the late 70s. Hold on. Anyway, you can look that up if you want to. It's the original. Wait, I have it here. Oh, it is the late 1978 is when the original Dawn of the Dead came out. And so, yeah, it's a bunch of survivors in a mall, basically trying to wait out the apocalypse. And I don't remember how this one ends, because I've recently finally watched the remake, and I know how that one ends. But I remember there being a helicopter involved. I don't know if they actually got to use the helicopter. I just remember there being a helicopter. But, yeah, phenomenal follow-up to the original, completely different set of survivors. And just the classic mall setting, great effects for the time. Hell, the effects still hold up today. There's a lot of gruesome stuff in here. I think it starts off in this hotel complex with these like SWAT team before eventually leading into the mall. But yeah, anyway, Dawn of the Dead. And then we move on to Day of the Dead. And this is the... Does it say what version this is? It's the DivMax special edition version. And Shout Factory actually recently announced that they put out a really good Blu-ray, which I don't own yet, but I eventually will. Oh, I don't know, we moved on from this topic, but I heard something that was... Took me for ages. Remember that everything to gain and nothing to lose if you're wrong. That's a good way of looking at it, yeah. How do you rate the remake? I will get to that when I get to that. I think that's 2 movies from now. But yeah, Day of the Dead. This one, this is actually probably the one I'm looking forward to rewatching the most, because I remember this one being a crazy movie. Granted, the movie was supposed to be a lot different. It was supposed to be a lot wider in scope, but Romero couldn't get the budget to really do with this movie what he wanted to do. But what he was able to pull off was fantastic. And there is, from what I hear, a great Blu-ray of this that Scream Factory put out. And they were holding off doing a 4K, and it's a good thing that they held off, because they just recently announced that they found the original camera negatives for Day of the Dead. So now they are working on a 4K of Day of the Dead. And, oh man, what I would give to give that when it comes out. But I love this. This is a little snap thing here. Opens up, a little Velcro thing. And then it opens up with 2 discs, and you got this little notepad booklet in here. And I've never read through this, but this is one of the ones I got from Suncoast back in the day. You'll hear me say that a lot if you haven't already. But just look at that. That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. I remember this being a really fun film, and I want to rewatch it. The one scene I really, really remember from this is when the one dude is basically getting his intestines ripped out, and as he's dying and blood is just filling up his lungs, he goes, "Choke on them." It's a brutal scene. Okay, so now we come to... I do have a widescreen version. This is a full screen version of Land of the Dead. The last of the proper Romero movies, although he did do a found footage one, which I hear was pretty terrible. I've never seen it. But yeah, Land of the Dead. This is another one I need to go back and rewatch, but the one thing that I remember from this movie, from watching it back in the day when I first got it, is that the zombies are getting smarter in this one. They kind of sort of alluded to it in Day of the Dead, but they really start to become like semi-intelligent by the end of this one. And that was like the big selling point. Oh my goodness, the Universal cases there. But that's honestly mostly what I remember. I know a lot of people don't like this one. It was made in I want to say 2008, but 2005. I think I got this in 2008. But yeah, 2005 is when this one came out, and there's a lot of like there's some bad CGI in there and stuff like that, and it's not the most well-written thing in the world, but I remember really enjoying this one for what it was, flaws and all. And just, I don't know, maybe it's just my soft spot for Romero and the zombie universe that he created, and the fact that this is essentially like the final piece of that. So for better or for worse, it is what it is, and I enjoy it for what it is. Hopefully when I rewatch it, I don't wind up changing my mind about that. So now I have a little dual pack here, which is how I have the widescreen version. So this has Land of the Dead, and it has the remake of Dawn of the Dead, which I just recently watched, and I really loved the Dawn of the Dead remake. I love especially the fact that it doesn't try to just rehash the original, even though it, carries over the whole concept of, survivors in a mall. That opening sequence was, I absolutely loved that whole thing. Where they're like, following around the cars and just seeing what's become of everything, starting off in the neighborhood before, finding another group of survivors, and just, that whole thing was amazing. And the thing I can say the best about the Dawn of the Dead remake is there are sequences in there that are so wholly unique to the remake. They took it in a completely different direction while staying true to the spirit of what the original was. And I'm trying to say that without giving away certain things for people who haven't seen either one. I also am fascinated by how they ended it. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I'm looking straight on. Camera was doing some weird stuff there. Okay, I might have to reset this. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay, I had to reset the model. I'm surprised it took this long for me to have to do that. But yeah, the Dawn of the Dead remake. Not usually the biggest fan of Zack Snyder, but some of his earlier stuff is really good. This Sin City. I actually really like Watchmen, although I haven't seen it in a while, so that could be any of these movies. If I go back and rewatch them, maybe my opinion could change, because my taste in what I look for in films has changed drastically over the years. And some of these, that's me from like way too long ago at this point, you know what I mean? But yeah, so those are the of the Dead movies that I own. Like I said, I know there's that one that we don't mention, that found footage Romero film, which I think was one of his last films. Okay, setting that aside, here's a really interesting one. Okay, let me grab these. Okay. So next we have The Evil Dead. And I actually made reviews of these on my channel way back in the day. Unfortunately, I don't think I have watched them since then, so once again, memories are going to be kind of fuzzy. Although I do think I watched this one somewhat within the last few years. I might have. But very low budget, very cool. Oh my goodness, my case is a little broken. I did not know that. Huh. I probably wasn't concerned about that because of what I'm about to show off. Yeah, Bruce Campbell fighting some not necessarily undead, but evil dead. Basically, the spell from this book is read and essentially makes all kinds of creepy things happen. Brings to life creatures called deadites. Basically, I guess the best way I could describe it would be almost like demons taking over the bodies of dead people. And they have all kinds of, crazy things that they can do. It's essentially like zombies with powers, essentially. And yeah, this one is super low budget. It's got a lot. It's actually got some claymation sequences, like stop motion. It's really crazy, some of the gore stuff that they did in this. It's really wacky. It's also the movie that has a scene where a woman is raped by a tree. That's a thing that happens in this movie. But yeah, I recognize that disc coming up here, because not only do I have this, this was the original one that I got from Suncoast back in the day. I just bought a whole bunch of horror films during that trip because they were going out of business and they were basically liquidating. They had a dirt cheap DVDs, and I bought a bunch of them. Most of my old school collection is from that Suncoast purchase. A lot of them are horror movies, but then there's things like the Platinum Collection of Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I got there, which the price tends to fluctuate over the years. I think it's back up there now. But, so yeah, what I got later on is the Evil Dead Ultimate Edition, and I know I got this used because it's supposed to come with either a booklet or a poster or something, and I don't have it. I mean, I could have swore I bought this new, but apparently not. But yeah, this it's like a 3-disc edition, so you get a widescreen, a full screen, each with different commentary tracks, by the way. The Ladies of the Evil Dead documentary about the actresses who were in there, and I think there's also some other bonus features that are on here. Old school horror movies. Do I have some newer ones? I do have some newer ones. I will actually get to that. A lot of my newer horror films, well, not necessarily new films, but new parts of my collection, a lot of them are Asian horror films. Because when I finally was able to start collecting again, that was like something that I had gotten into after I was no longer able to collect movies anymore. And I think I might have had maybe 1 or 2 at that point, if any. No, I think I had action films that were foreign, but not any horror films. But yeah, I'll definitely get to those. But yeah, so I just wanted to show that off here. Lots of fun stuff. And I've never really felt the need to upgrade this just because the picture quality is fine enough on the DVD. And, you know, it kind of has a rough look to it with it being... hold on, I need to reset this again. That was how often I was figuring I was going to have to do it. Okay, I think we are reset. Okay. Anyway. See, you can see that there. And then I also have Evil Dead 2, aka Dead by Dawn. And this is... Oh, do you have much of a DBZ collection these days? Not to get too far off topic. I still have all the ones that I have. I think the only one that I have that I didn't do a video on might be the new Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. And now I'm not in a position where I can really collect movies again, so that is one where I need to start getting more. Although I'm trying to remember if I did a review of the Dragon Box. But I did have more of those. I will probably show those off in a future video. Probably what I want to do next with this format right here, after I'm done doing all these, is I want to do a follow-up video to that 20 videos in one day thing that I did back when I turned 20. Oh my god, I'm realizing how long ago that's been. I'm like damn close to getting to 40 now. Anyway, me feeling old aside, what the hell was I about to say? I want to do a follow-up to the DVDs that I showed off there, because there's been a lot of updates with like upgrades and stuff that I've done to those, and also the Superman collection that I showed off in there basically does not function anymore. But I've replaced that. But anyway, so yeah, Evil Dead 2. Oh yeah, something I was saying about Evil Dead, I didn't feel the need to upgrade some of these just because they're kind of meant to look a little rough around the edges. That's kind of their aesthetic. So I don't really feel the need, especially when there's not really a whole lot in the way of new bonus features on the Blu-rays. I haven't really felt the need to upgrade those. There is one that I might upgrade, which I'll show off in a minute here. But yeah, Evil Dead 2, my favorite in the series, because while the first movie is basically all horror, the second movie is sort of an equal combination of horror and comedy. But unlike a lot of horror comedies, it actually goes hard on the horror elements, and it has legitimately terrifying scenes. In fact, the only scenes in the entire series that have ever actually made me jump and like really gotten under my skin are from this movie. Like even the tree scene from the first one, I'm just like, oh wow, that's unsettling but not scary. This one has the deer head scene. If you know, you know. The deer head coming to life and laughing. Yeah, that just about gave me nightmares. And there's also... Ooh, here's an interesting bit of trivia. There is also a mirror scene in here where Ash, the character that Bruce Campbell plays, he goes up to his reflection, and then his reflection basically comes through the mirror and grabs him. Made me jump out of my seat the first time. And it's done without any kind of one of those cheesy stings. No ding. No, it's perfectly quiet when he grabs him. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it a lot. Oh man, I love when I get talking and I'm actually going on a tangent, because normally when I'm doing my gameplay streams, I'll go these like long periods of just full silence. And I hate when I do that, because the whole point of me doing that is to try to get better talking on camera. And then I just wind up focusing way too much on the game. I'm getting better about that, actually. But that's one of the big reasons why I really wanted to do this, because I knew that I would, if I was talking specifically about movies and my physical media collection, I would start going off on tangents, and I would actually start talking about things. I love it. But anyway, what was I about to say? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that mirror scene where that Ash comes through the mirror. There is actually a scene in my second book, Midnight Falls in the House of Cranes, where you can probably tell, if you read it, that I actually took inspiration from that mirror scene. It's a dream sequence, and I make it very clear early on that it is a dream sequence, but, yeah, a little bit of influence came from Evil Dead 2 here on that. And there will be more scenes in future books where I'm taking inspiration from movies that I love. Because movies are my passion. If I had the budget, I wouldn't be writing books. Let me put it that way. So then we come to the last one. We started off all horror, then we got horror comedy, and now we have a comedy that has horror trappings in it. Army of Darkness. This is the Boomstick edition. I also somewhere have the regular bare bones 1-disc edition. Interesting enough, this was actually done by, I believe, Universal did this one, which is actually the reason why it's called Army of Darkness and not its original title, which was I think it was supposed to be called either Ash versus Army of Darkness or Ash versus Evil Dead or something. Evil Dead was supposed to be in there somewhere, or Ash versus Army of Darkness or something like that. But anyway, they didn't use the Evil Dead name because I think the director, Sam Raimi, was the guy who directed the trilogy. Same guy who went on to do the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. And, this is basically him doing a movie for the studio, from what I understand. I need to watch all the bonus features on this one, a lot of the making of stuff, and there's different commentaries. Once again, I think is there a commentary on the theatrical cut? It doesn't look like it. There's behind the scenes featurette, but the commentary is only on the director's cut. Let me see. Hopefully this isn't going to fall apart, because this was kind of busted at the time I got it. Okay, got to be very careful, because I remember it trying to fall out at one point. There we go. But yeah, this basically at the end of the second movie, Ash basically winds up going through a time warp and winding up in medieval times. That's what it was. That was the original title, was supposed to be The Medieval Dead. That was supposed to be the original title for this film, if I remember correctly. The Medieval Dead. That has such a nice ring to it. But they eventually called it Army of Darkness. And yeah, so basically he winds up in medieval times with a shotgun, aka his boomstick. Boomstick edition. And I just love that shot. The shotgun with the chainsaw on his arm. I think they might have already done that in 2. Let Yeah, because he winds up chopping his hand off in two, and probably one of the best scenes in that movie. And then he attaches a chainsaw, and then uses a shotgun on the other hand, and it's just badass. This is a lot more, like I said, comedy, a lot of action, especially at the end when he faces off against the army. This is where a lot of the classic lines that were like used in like a Duke Nukem, like "Hail to the King, baby," and all that fun stuff. I think Duke Nukem even does say at some point, something about his boomstick. That sounds like something he would say. I don't remember if he did or not. But there's also a TV show that's come out since, and I know that I've seen part of the first season of the TV show, and I remember really loving it. But that's the one that I need to finish. Let's set those aside. So yeah, that's my Evil Dead collection. Ooh. Oh yeah, these next few I'm really excited about. So here we have A Nightmare on Elm Street, the Inventa-Film edition. And yeah, I have all of the movies in this franchise that I care to own. Let me put it that way. But I wanted to show this one off first. This one has a documentary on it, a really good documentary from what I remember. The House That Freddy Built, The Legacy of New Line Horror. I definitely want to rewatch that, but I have seen this film multiple times over the years, so definitely one of the fresher horror movies in my mind. Robert Englund, absolute legend. Heather Langenkamp. Her acting tends to be kind of questionable, but she's got a great screen presence, so I'll give her that. And she was just definitely a great grounding point for this franchise. But Robert Englund absolutely kills it in this. One of the few films where he is actually legitimately scary. The ones I say that he's like legitimately terrifying in are the first one, the second one, and New Nightmare. But this, absolutely great. And there is actually a documentary that I wish that I owned. And I have the, what's the best way to describe this? Ever play the Evil Dead game? I have not played the Evil Dead game. I am probably going to at some point through emulation. But that's one that I knew of back in the day, but I never got around to playing it. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, the killer who kills you in your dreams, and if you die in your dream, you die in real life. I believe this was the film debut of Johnny Depp, if I remember correctly, who has by far the best death scene in the entire movie. He's the one who got he gets pulled into the bed, and it just has the whole big blood geyser. But yeah, the first one, absolute classic, best in the series. Directed by Wes Craven, who directed 2 of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I thought he had directed 3 of them. I actually just recently found out that I was wrong about that, and let me reset this model. Oh my god. Oh, no. Get that off the screen. Okay. Got it. Okay. So it was like looking down the entire time. But yeah. I'll get to that when I get to that. But yeah, I thought he had directed 3 of the films. He only directed 2 of the films. And that includes the original Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street. By the way, I do not have the 4K collection yet. I was holding off. I'm probably going to buy the Blu-ray collection first just to have a Blu-ray of them. But I really do want to get that 4K collection. Oh man, that is going to wind up being my damn white whale for years. I just know it. Yes, Johnny Depp is Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow's very first film was getting killed off, being the boyfriend of the main character in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and getting killed off in the most brutal way imaginable. There's also a lot of really great comedic moments throughout the entire franchise, which, speaking of, yes, I do have it. If you were if you're big into physical media collecting, you already know this box set. This box set is the reason why so many people were disappointed with the Blu-ray collection, and it is the reason why, up until this point, I never bought the Blu-ray collection. Because it just, compared to this, there's just no contest. That collection is literally just a clip case with, they doubled up on the movies. This one has them all on their own separate discs. And then it's got a booklet that comes with it. And for Freddy's Dead, it even comes with a pair of 3D glasses. It has the 3D section intact. It's amazing. Although apparently I hear they redid the 3D section for the new 4K version. Oh, I want that so bad. I wanted to get the steelbook of the 4K, but it looks like that is probably never going to happen. But you know what? I am okay with what they with the mass market version. Oh my goodness, that was incredibly hard to pull off with these gloves. They have the like shrunken down versions for whatever reason of the original poster art of each of these, and they come in like the old school clip cases. And I think only a handful of them actually have some bonus features on the actual discs themselves. The rest of the bonus features are on the Nightmare Encyclopedia, which I tried to look through the other night, but the ripped version of the Nightmare Encyclopedia I have does not allow me to actually go through and select any special feature. It lets me select certain things in the menu, but not others. I don't know if it was an issue of how I ripped it, but I actually got to go through and just pop this in, probably to my 4K player, which I have. I do not want to move this camera because it could potentially freeze up, and if it freezes up, there is no way without completely resetting the live stream that I can unfreeze it. I learned that while trying to get this going. That was a whole nightmare and a half, but not one on Elm Street, thankfully. So yeah, first one, absolute classic. Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I haven't watched this in a long time. You know, how many times have I said that today? But it's another one of those where I really remember digging this one. This one was not directed by Wes Craven, and it sort of has a loose continuity with the rest of the series, basically about this guy who is essentially turning into Freddy. Like Freddy's like sort of taking him over through his dreams. And there's also been a lot made about the like the gay subtext going on in this one. I never really saw it that way, but apparently the director said that it's not just people's imagination. He did plan that. That's what I hear anyway. But yeah, no interest. But did this one have a commentary? No, this one does not have a commentary. That's actually one of the biggest reasons why I want to get the Blu-ray version. Just a cheap way, because I think that one has commentary for all the films, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong about that, though. I know that they have a lot of the bonus features from the Nightmare Encyclopedia. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Now, this one is interesting because until the other day, and I considered myself, a real big, horror buff, but until the other day, I did not know that Wes Craven did not direct this movie. I have always said that Wes Craven directed it, but I was wrong. This movie was directed by Chuck Russell. And I think that right there is the reason why, because this is based on characters created by because that's normally where the director's thing would go. And I think that right there, because I didn't read it close enough, is why I thought he directed this. But I believe he did. He is one of the writers credited on this, not just characters created by, but actually wrote the screenplay. And Nancy, the survivor from the first one, actually does come back in this. That was like one of the big selling points, is that Wes Craven was coming back in some capacity, and Heather Langenkamp was coming back to the series. And this tends to be a lot of people's favorites. I remember it being really good last time I watched it, but once again, it's been a long time. But there is something that happens in this movie that essentially, and I'll get to it when I get to New Nightmare, but there was a jumping off point for this that created a fan theory about connecting this to, or most of the series, to New Nightmare through something called the Beautiful Dream Theory. And it's based on something that happens in this movie, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. But now we move on to A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. This is basically just, they kind of took the direction that Nightmare on Elm Street 3 went, which, by the way, this one takes place in I can't remember if it's like a mental asylum or a rehab facility or something like that, that Nancy is working at. But then this continues, the survivors of that one, the story continues on to Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I think 5 might have a completely different set of characters. I don't remember. It's been so long. But basically, 4 and 5 often tend to blur together in my mind. I think this is... Oh, I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah, this is the one with the car graveyard and everything. I'm remembering visuals from it that I'm having trouble putting into words. What's changed about what you look for in movies then versus now? It's more my comprehension of I don't want to sound like a cheesy film school nerd or anything like that, but God damn it, what were the words that I was trying to... Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Gosh dang it. It's not even just using the Lord's name. I'm just trying to cuss less in general. I'm trying to expand my vocabulary. But anyway, what I look for in movies now, I tend to pay more attention to dialogue now. You don't even necessarily have to have good dialogue, as long as your dialogue doesn't irritate the crap out of me by either not sounding the way human beings talk, which that I can forgive to a certain degree. Cheesy dialogue is not necessarily the problem that irks me, especially with a lot of newer films. But a dialogue that either tries to sound a lot smarter than it is, or dialogue that's trying to send a message, or trying to be subtle when it's not actually subtle. Alright, see you in a little bit then. And I will actually get back on this topic more when I get to the Halloween movies. Which, I mean, you already know I have those movies. There are 3 that I do not own. I probably will at some point, but I'm going to get the cheapest version that I have just to say, okay, I have them in my collection. And they're the 3 most recent ones. But anyway, we'll get to that. But anyway, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5 kind of blend together in my mind. I know this is the one where they started exploring Freddy's backstory. And this one I remember basically just being a continuation of 3. Not as good as 3, but still a pretty good movie, especially this far into a horror franchise. And then you have 5. I know this is the one where where you essentially find out that he was that Freddy was the quote son of 100 maniacs. Basically, his mother was a nun who was in a prison, if I remember. It's been so long, but she basically wound up being assaulted by inmates, and one of them is supposedly Freddy's dad. That's basically what I remember from this one. And I think this is the one that was directed by Renny Harlin, who did Die Hard 2. Let me check. No, was that 4? I could have swore. Oh wait, no, it might be on here somewhere. Now, this is directed by Stephen Hopkins. I could have swore Rennie Harlan made one of these. Was it? Oh, no, he directed 4. Okay, yeah, Rennie Harlan, the guy behind Die Hard 2, made Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Okay, so that's about all I know about 5. Then Freddy's Dead, the one that's in 3D, and I actually put the 3D glasses that come in this little envelope. And if I remember correctly, I think they actually have the branding on them. Yep, little Nightmare on Elm Street branding on that. Yeah. So yeah, this is the one with the 3D sequence at the end. And I think, I'm trying to remember, is it like Freddy's daughter who's in this? I remember the soundtrack was really good. They got, oddly enough, an early song by the Goo Goo Dolls. Apparently they were like kind of 80s style rock back in the day when they first started off. That kind of blows my mind. And I don't think he did a song for this soundtrack. Well, a lot of these have like really good like rock soundtracks to them. The one that really sticks out for me is the theme song to Dream Warriors. I forget who sings that, but I do. Dokken sings Dream Warriors, and I love the music video to Dream Warriors where essentially, they're playing the song, and basically Freddy takes out the members of the band. I know he at least takes out the guitarist, because I know he gets dragged through a wall, but he barely has any reaction to it, and he's almost smiling because the band was coked out of their mind while they were filming that music video. And supposedly, Robert Englund was literally putting cocaine on the Freddy claw, and Dokken was literally freaking snorting coke off of Freddy Krueger's claws. Supposedly, that is a thing that actually happened. Have fun with that information. But in any case, Alice Cooper actually plays, I think it's supposed to be like his adopted dad. I think I might have implied that it's his real dad. I don't know if that was a retcon or if it's supposed to be like his stepdad. I think it might be a stepdad. But yeah, so you got Alice Cooper beating a young Freddy Krueger with a belt. Not a great movie. Kind of cheesy from what I remember. And, it's the one where Freddy's basically puts them into like a video game, and he's like using the Power Glove, the Nintendo Power Glove from back in the day, and he says, "Now I'm playing with power." Really cheesy movie. They went as far as they could with the comedic version of Freddy, far removed from the sadistic killer from the earlier ones. Although he is still a sadistic killer, just more of a fun-loving one. Yeah, it's wild. And speaking of wild, let's get into what they did with New Nightmare, the only other movie in the series directed by the late, great Wes Craven. And I might actually switch up the order that I do these next ones in, because we're ending with New Nightmare. But before I do get to what I want to talk about with that, so this great booklet in here. And, of course, the Nightmare Encyclopedia with a crap ton of bonus stuff on it. Basically, if you don't want to shell out for the 4K and you just want to own these movies, this set is still absolutely amazing. I mean, you can technically go for the Blu-rays, but man, I recommend this set. This is one of the gems. I don't know if it's still going for cheap. I think because of its reputation, I think the price might have started going up secondhand. I'm glad I got it when I did, even if mine, I don't know if you can tell through this webcam, is on, it's in really rough shape. But, yeah, New Nightmare. The interesting thing about this movie is that it goes really, really meta with its plot. Because essentially, what the plot of this movie involves is Heather Langenkamp not playing Nancy, but playing herself, an actress who was in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and Freddy Krueger is basically invading her dreams and coming into the real world. I mean, you've got Robert Englund playing himself. You've got Wes Craven playing himself. I think one of the producers is playing himself as well. And she's like, interacting with these characters. So you've got Heather Langenkamp interacting with Robert Englund as themselves. Okay. I'm trying to move this thing. I got to reset it again. Hold on. There we go. But yeah, it's sort of a meta commentary on horror films themselves, and it gets a whole new layer added to it if you subscribe to the fan theory called the Beautiful Dream Theory. Because, kind of have to spoil something that happens at the end of 3 in order to even go into this theory, but Nancy essentially dies at the end of 3, and I'd have to go back and rewatch it because I don't remember exactly how this played out, but one of the girls from that has like sort of pseudo psychic powers and everything, and as Nancy's dying, because she doesn't want Nancy, to go off, having a nightmare, essentially, she decides to put her in what she vaguely describes as a beautiful dream. So, the fan theory of the beautiful dream goes, what if the dream that she put Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was a dream where she wasn't Nancy? Where instead she was an actress named Heather Langenkamp, and that actress was in a series of Nightmare on Elm Street movies that weren't actually real, and there wasn't actually the serial killer who murdered her boyfriend and, killed all these people that she cared about. It was all make-believe, it's sort of, giving her that kind of a happy ending, And then what if Freddy found his way into that dream? That is basically how the fan theory goes. And it basically allows New Nightmare to more easily fit into continuity with the entire series, while being this great, meta narrative on its own. And just, at times, I almost think this might be my favorite movie in the series. I mean, it'll never top the first one, and there's a lot of people who absolutely do not like it because of its meta elements and the fact that, Freddy's Dead, supposed to be the last one, although a lot of people don't like Freddy's Dead. But not only do I love a lot of the meta stuff that they did with New Nightmare, but I love the fact that they actually made Freddy scary again. Welcome back! There is one scene in particular where Freddy pops out of her closet, out of Heather's closet, and he says something like, "Miss me?" And just the way they did his makeup effects and the dark lighting and just the whole vibe of that scene, I'm like, oh my god, that's the Freddy that you miss in the subsequent sequels as they started making him goofier and goofier. They brought, as you can see, just look at that picture. That tells you everything you need to know about what they did with Freddy in this. And this one, of course, has the infamous Demon Freddy, because they turn him into a demon in this one. He was always a monster, but good lord, the places they take it in this. So yeah, New Nightmare. Hold on a second. Let me put these back in here. And I'm going to pull up the next one. But a lot of the stuff that they would do with New Nightmare, especially the meta stuff, That this was, I think the first one was 1982 or 3, and New Nightmare, by the time that came out, that was 1994. And following that, it pretty much came at a time, and they were trying to do something different with New Nightmare because of essentially how slasher films were going in the 90s. Because in the 90s, there was a bit of a dip. You know, the audience just wasn't showing up to them as much anymore. The quality of slashers was going downhill. So the slasher genre really needed like a big reinvention. And who would wind up essentially reinventing the horror films of the slasher films in particular of the 90s? Well, it would be none other than Wes Craven himself. Because unknown to anyone at the time, most likely even to Wes Craven himself, New Nightmare would wind up essentially being sort of a pseudo-prototype, a dry run for the next series that we're about to talk about. Set these aside. It would wind up being the prototype for Scream. The first 4 of which are directed by Wes Craven. It was also written by, at least the good ones, were written by Kevin Williamson. This is my little pack of the first 3, the Dimension Collector series. And I don't know if I have to explain the plot of Scream, but yeah, basically, you know, killers basing their kills off of horror movies. And, you know, basically they're killers, massive horror fans. And this is basically where you start getting into the meta whole thing of, you know, there are rules in order to survive a horror movie. And who better to make a movie, a slasher movie at that, about those rules than one of the forefathers of the franchise as we know it today, which, of course, was Wes Craven. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is way too slippery. Oh, hold up. Okay, I gotta just pull them out as a whole big bulk. Oh, about what specifically? So yeah, you got, you know, Scream, the original, the classic. What's your favorite scary movie? Oh, I gotta reset my thing again. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Okay, let me try this again. All right, let me lean back. Okay. So, yeah, Scream, the original, the classic, by far the best movie in the series. I'm trying to think of what I have to say. I know I've seen each of these multiple times. Like, I had seen them before I even had this box set, and I think I've watched them 2 or 3 more times since then. But yeah, the first is by far the best one when it comes to doing the formula. You know, so the tagline right there: someone's taking their love of scary movies one step too far. You know, you got the best, you know, killer reveal and all that stuff. The whole idea that there's multiple killers, even. I mean, just it's so good. And I'm just trying to think of specific things that I want to say about this. If I had like scripted this out, I would have a lot more to say, but I really want to talk about how the series continued. So you got the second one, Scream 2, where, of course, they made the whole meta commentary about the fact that it's a sequel, and they know it's a sequel. And, you know, someone's taken their love of sequels way too far was the tagline for this one. It's once again directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. And not as good as the first one, but a damn good sequel. It has some of the most iconic scenes in the franchise. Like, one of the ones that really sticks out in my mind is where the main character, and for some reason my name is slipping on her name. I know she's played by Neve Campbell, but I'm trying... It's Sydney. Hello, Sydney. But where her and her friend in the second one, they're they're in a car that's crashed, and the killer's in the front seat, and they're having to climb over him in order to get out of the car. And I remember that scene just being so tense. I don't know, the first one basically takes place mostly in this neighborhood. I know this one, I think, doesn't it take place mostly in like a college or something like that? Although there's that opening scene where it's like in a movie theater, and they kill off Will Smith's wife, which I'm sure nowadays he probably watches this film with a big old smile on his face. Anyway, yeah, Scream 2. Very, very solid follow-up. If only I could say the same thing about Scream 3. Now, I don't hate Scream 3. From what I remember, it's a fairly decent movie, although I do find it odd, a creative choice that they made in this. Oh, okay, one of many, but one in particular that I'll get to, but, oh my goodness. What was I about to say? Hold on a second. Oh yeah, this one was written by someone else. This one was written by Eric Kruger. Probably got him for his last name. Oddly enough, Kruger being paired up with Wes Craven. Who'd have thought? But yeah, Scream 3, first one not written by Kevin Williamson, and that, I think, really hurt the film. Because some of the characters start doing things that are entirely out of character. You know, mostly poor Courtney Cox there. Yeah, she kind of got the short end of the stick on this one. She's not as self-reliant in this one, mostly relying on Dewey. And there was also a lot of just general writing decisions, especially the decision to just something I noticed. I don't know if a lot of other people noticed, but I got a little brother that pointed out to me something that that it bugged me ever since. There's a lot of cussing in this movie, which, you know, it's an R-rated horror slasher film. There's going to be a lot of cussing, but there is an excessive amount of just completely unnecessary F-bombs dropped all throughout this movie. Like, I think that is the one thing that really sticks out when it comes to, wow, this was clearly written by someone else who all they know how to do is just, it's a horror movie, let's just make the characters cuss all the time. It was weird. Like, it's something where I don't think the average person would probably even notice it, but once you know, you can't unhear it. It's weird like that. And I'm also really glad at how they ended this movie. They literally, like, and figuratively, like through a symbolism, kind of left the door open for a sequel. And something that this film does is a guy who was like falsely accused of killing Sydney's mom in the first one winds up writing a book in the second one, and becomes a character who is actually killed off literally in the opening scene of 3. I think it was him that was killed off. Yeah, it was. But in this one, they're actually making a movie, and I think this is where the first appearance of the fictional universe within the movie of Stab comes in. So they're making Stab movies, which are like in-universe movies about the events of the movies. Once again, they're building off that meta-narrative. So that was an interesting take that actually does make this movie at least worth watching, even if it's nowhere near as good as the first 2. Now, with these first 3, I actually do have the Blu-ray set. And this comes with, you know, the first 3, as well as Still Screaming and Scream the Inside Story, 2 making of special features, which I have not watched yet, but definitely something I am going to get around to at some point. And they both come on their own separate disc there. But yeah, this is a set that exists. And if you want to just do this and 4, that would be a good thing. This is what I'd recommend if you're one to upgrade. And then we move on to Scream 4, which I'm just noticing there's kind of this weird... I don't know if you can see that well. It's kind of broken in a weird way, but it's not like a hole in the case. It's kind of weird. Anyway, Scream 4, once again directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. He came back for this one after so many years. And this one, some people absolutely despise this movie. I am not one of those people. I think it is probably the best one since the first one. I need to completely rewatch the entire series to see if I still think that, but I do have some criticisms for it. One very blinding criticism. But this is actually, and I looked this up on IMDb, because I didn't even know this at first. I thought it was one of Wes Craven's last movie. No, it's the last movie that Wes Craven ever directed. I don't know how long, I don't know how much longer after this is when he died, R.I.P. Wes Craven. But yeah, this was the movie that he went out on. And as far as I'm concerned, he went out on a banger. Not a flawless film, but this is where the franchise should have ended. I pretty much refused to watch the sequels that followed, just because I love how this one ended so much, and I know that what's the point in doing a Scream movie without Wes Craven directing it? And Kevin Williamson didn't write those movies either, so what's the point? It's just fan fiction at that point. And I hear that they apparently killed off Dewey, and I'm not a fan of that idea. So as far as I'm concerned, this is how the franchise ends. And the twist with this one, so the first one you had doing the cliches of horror movie and being meta about that. The second one, it's about sequels. The third one, it's about the movie within a movie. And this one probably has one of my favorite twists on the formula. This one is specifically about remakes. Basically, someone is essentially using the killer persona to recreate the murders, or at least how the murders played out from the first one. I come home yesterday, I saw some dude wearing a Ghostface costume, headphones, and just sitting there. Oh, that had to have been a hell of a sight. But yeah, just the twist on this one and the killer's motivation, and just there's so many things to love. Now, as far as my criticisms, there are some modern writing cliches that I don't like that kind of crept up into this one. They're so few and far between that I can't even think of them off the top of my head. I just remember them being there. But my biggest criticism of this movie by far actually has to do with the way the film looks. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the way most people do digital photography in general, but there is a creative decision that was made with the look of this film that has just irked me ever since I first saw it. And that is the fact... Oh, bumped my microphone there. That is the fact that they essentially... They made the film dark and they cranked the bloom up as far as it would go. So when there's a daylight scene or a scene with like lights of any kind, the lights in the scene and the whites of the scene are completely blown out. And I mean really blown out. I mean, I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to make this really big contrast between the light and the dark sections. And I understand what they were going for. I just feel like they pushed it way too far. It was a bold decision. And it's one of those things where it's a personal criticism of mine. It could be something, you might absolutely love the look of this film. But I was not a big fan of how far they took it. But that is really my biggest criticism with this movie. Once again, I'd have to rewatch it after a while to see if there's anything else that I might have to say. The one thing I did notice, though, this is actually the first movie where I started noticing, because this is a Blu-ray DVD combo. But this is one of the first ones after I started collecting Blu-rays, and I actually I forget why I watched the DVD instead of watching the Blu-ray at one point, and I went, wow, for a DVD transfer, this actually looks really good. And then I started going through some other films I have, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you can actually do DVD transfers really well if you try. Although there's some movies that I own that have absolutely terrible DVD transfers. But if you have a good enough DVD transfer, you don't really need to upgrade. It's just more of a personal preference, and it's going to look better, but it won't look that much better if it has a fantastic DVD version. Balls packs my friend to get off, stop, and pretend wasn't there. I noted. Okay, that sounds funny. I hope it saves these comments on the replay. That'd be nice. But in any case, oh my goodness. Yeah, I definitely want to go back and rewatch all of these. So that is my Scream collection. Those are the only ones that I have, only ones that I care to own. Because, yeah, I know there's like a 7th one coming out at this point, but I just lost interest. Like I said, without Wes Craven, what's the point? Okay, so the next collection. Once again, I'm going to start off with the DVDs. Friday the 13th. Now, I actually did at one point go back and start rewatching these after my initial viewings, and I got up until the one where it's like a fake out and it's a copycat killer. Although I know I have seen that one twice at a certain point. But this is my old school DVD collection. I think this is one of the ones that I got from the Suncoast. This is the From Crystal Lake to Manhattan collection. Let me pull these out real quick. And they kind of doubled up with these, so you got the first 2 on one, and then the next 2